Depends how heavy it gets, but there's already queuing pressure on the M4 as you squeeze into a single lane approaching central Durban. That delays between the M7 Bluff exit and the Victoria Embankment off-ramp. Truck on its side on the N3 at Sadara, moving from Pietermaritzburg up towards Howick. Just past that Sadara exit is where you'll find the right lane obstructed, and a little bit later possibly some additional lanes, if not a full closure of the highway to safely recover that. Gauteng looking all right this morning. Cape Town looks like being a busy Tuesday. We've got traffic volumes building up on both the N1 inbound from Belleville and the N2 passing Lunga. Chapman's Peak Drive remains closed until probably a little bit later in this week. I'm Rob Byrne. SAFM Sunrise starts now.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
6 minutes after 6. Good morning. Welcome to SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. How are you doing this Tuesday morning? There's something missing from our lives at the moment. Stanzerum do? Anyone know what it is? It looks a bit like a cupboard. Oh, that's it. There's no cabinet. Still, at this stage, no cabinet, unfortunately. And we're still sort of waiting to see who's going to get to what position. All sorts of reports this morning about what the hold-up might be, whether it's the sort of crockery section or the cutlery section. From what I can work out, it seems really that the ANC and the DA are just not able to agree. That's the major sticking point. And of course, together, they have 70% of the vote. There's this sort of proportion issue, it seems, between them. The DA seems to be saying that we must get the number of cabinet positions based on our share of votes in the coalition, and the ANC seems to be suggesting that people should get cabinet positions based on their share of votes in government. So in other words, the DA got just over 20%. On one version, the ANC's version, they'll get 20% of the cabinet seats. On the DA's version, well, they'll get significantly higher than that because, of course, the EFF and the MK are not part of the coalition. I hope I've described that properly. Still trying to work it all out in my head. It boils down to, for the moment, the DA seems to be demanding 6 ministerial positions and 7 deputies, including the position of either deputy president or minister in the presidency. The DA has a very different view of looking at all of this, and the ANC has a different view, and the DA also wants to be represented in all clusters, and they want to be able to appoint directors general in ministries run by DA ministers through a sort of panel of DA people that would be submitted to the president. I don't know if that's going to fly, frankly. There's a lot that's going on here. The ANC putting out a statement yesterday saying that some parties are making outrageous demands for specific positions in cabinet through the media, and that they basically shouldn't do it. We understand, and there's a report this morning, this is in News 24, that President Ramaphosa did meet with the DA leader John Steenhuisen yesterday. Also, I should point out, cabinet also, Gauteng also missing a cabinet at the moment. And that's a major problem because it seems, and I'm not sure of this, but I do not have clarity at this point as to whether, in fact, the ANC and the DA have been talking to each other about the situation in Gauteng and whether there's been consultation at the provincial level. Looks like maybe there hasn't been, and I think that's going to be a major issue. You may remember, and we were discussing this yesterday with the spokesperson, the national spokesperson for the ANC, and I asked specifically about Zizi Kodwa. And she said, because he's still, as I understand it, due to be sworn in today, and she said there'll be some clarity and sort of reading the tea leaves. It seemed to me that maybe, in fact, he wouldn't be sworn in as a member of parliament again. Well, there's been no clarity yet from the ANC on what is going to happen, but we do expect that the MK members of the National Assembly will be sworn in today, including their chief whip, who, as you know, is Dr. John Hlophe, the former Western Cape judge president, first person in our democratic history to be impeached as a judge. And I think there's still quite a lot of conversation around that decision by Umkhonto weSizwe. There was a statement yesterday by Martin Meyer. Martin Meyer is the new MEC for Public Works and Infrastructure in KwaZulu-Natal. He's from the Democratic Alliance. They've got a cabinet there, and of course the IFP has the premiership. But he was talking about setting up a task team to deal with the construction mafia in KwaZulu-Natal, and KZN really is the centre of this. He also said that he will not, and his department will not negotiate with criminals. And he went on to say that construction mafia people, as he put it, are not trying to help people. They're trying to enrich themselves. I thought that was quite an important point to make. They're not trying to help people. They're trying to enrich themselves. And I'm sure there'll be some sort of response in some way to that, but I thought that was very interesting. Meanwhile, in Cape Town, do you remember Wendy Kloppers? She was the City of Cape Town housing development official, and she was shot dead in what was really looked like an assassination at a construction site. Well, a person was arrested for that yesterday. And people in the Western Cape talking about how important that is. The mayor had actually put up a reward for 1 million rand. So just interesting to see that. And then one story that's not quite related to politics, but I thought was very interesting. This was in Business Day this morning. The union NUMSA, they're the metal workers union, and of course they've been also organising in other sectors. And it seems a couple of years ago what happened was there was a strike at an animal feed manufacturer, so a company producing animal feed. The workers went on strike. They wanted to be represented by NUMSA. And the employer said, we don't think you can be represented by NUMSA. They're negotiating outside their area. And what this means then is that an employer wouldn't necessarily know which union to negotiate with. You know, if you're in one specific field and now you've got unions coming from outside, what about the unions in that field? Things get quite complicated. And the Constitutional Court has eventually sided with the employer on this, it seems, and actually said, yes, a union has to sort of stick within its sector. And one of the key things was that NUMSA's constitution talks, as I understand it, about representing workers in the metal workers sector. And so they can't go beyond their own constitution. I wonder if they change it, if that changes things. Maybe they will. But it's certainly a very interesting discussion, actually. And there's a lot going on in the sort of labour space at the moment. Lots to come this morning. We will, of course, focus on the negotiations. It's now 6 days with no cabinet. And, you know, what happens? We'll speak to the presidency. We'll speak to Vincent Magwenya about that, because I think that's quite important. Just what happens to government during this time? Do things still run? We'll hear from the ANC's head of presidency, Sibongile Basani. We'll hear from the DA in Gauteng, and also one of the parties staying out of the coalition. Important to hear from them at this time. We'll hear from the African Transformation Movement around that. There's a lot to come this morning. You know how to get in touch with us this morning. It's 086 000 2032, SMS 41391, Tweet SFM Radio, and that's Stephen Grootes. Send your WhatsApp voice note to 0614 104 107. Good morning. It's Tuesday morning, 13 minutes after 6.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand, or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Johannesburg Water is concerned about the current high water consumption, which is causing a severe strain on the entity's systems and threatens the sustainability of consistent bulk supply. Play your part in conserving water by following these simple tips. Reporting leaks and burst pipes. Do not leave taps dripping and repair your internal leaks. Wash your car on the grass, as this will water your lawn at the same time, and shorten your showering time. Together, we can reduce water wastage and protect this precious resource. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
5-time champions Bafana and 3-time champs, the Zebras, are both searching for the essential 3 points in their second Group A contest. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2024. Experience the beauty of the Southern African Derby. South Africa versus Botswana on Saturday, 29 June at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Eva Cheaper, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm well, thanks. Are we looking for a cabinet? Have you seen one anywhere? You haven't seen one lying around, have you, that we could use temporarily?
Not
No.
even. Nope.
No.
Can't imagine it.
6 days. Lost mine for 6 days now. Anyway, what's coming up today?
Well, as we still wait for the mysterious cabinet to finally show up, today 58 members of the MK party led by Dr. John Hlophe will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. So the MK party missed the group swearing-in ceremony that was held on the 14th and 15th of this month. So in order to serve as members of parliament, they must swear or affirm faithfulness to the Republic and obedience to the Constitution. In other news as well, sticking with being sworn in, Zamani Saul, the Northern Cape Premier, he's going to be having his inauguration today. Now, staying with the Northern Cape, I found the story very interesting. The Salt Lake municipality in Kimberley is owed about 3.8 billion rand by residents, government and businesses in the area. So according to the municipality, residents alone owe about 2.3 billion rand. So yesterday, the municipality blocked electricity meters for those that owe them, but the decision was rescinded due to threats of violence.
Sure.
So now residents in the area have been given 12 weeks to get their accounts in order.
I wonder if they'll block government departments too. I've never understood how government departments, and this happens time and time again in different places, how government departments end up not paying electricity bills. I find it astonishing.
Yes, we'll have to keep an eye on it and see 12 weeks later if anything else is going to happen.
Yes.
So now another story, a suspect linked to the murder of city official Wendy Kloppers at the Delft Symphony Way housing project, which you mentioned earlier. The incident happened in February. So the suspect is appearing in the Cape Town Magistrate Court today. Police say the 40-year-old handed himself over following investigations. Now, Cape Town Mayor Gordon Hill-Lewis has welcomed the arrest, but says it's clear that he did not act alone. So, according to the mayor, the 1 million rand award for information leading to the prosecution of those behind the murder still stands. And lastly, in some international news to keep an eye on, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has been sued in the New York federal court by Israelis who are accusing the agency of aiding and abetting the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. The complaint was filed in the U.S. District Court of Manhattan and includes an allegation that the agency spent more than a decade helping Hamas build its terror infrastructure and the personnel needed to carry out the attack. So some of the plaintiffs include former hostages, survivors and families of those killed by Hamas.
Sure, there'll be a huge fight over that, I can just imagine. Eva Chipa, thank you. We'll be listening on the radio 18 minutes now after 6 o'clock.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Your weather around the country this morning: Tshwane, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, a low of 6, a high of 21. Johannesburg, fine, 6 and 19. Vereeniging, fine, 3 and 19. Mbombela, partly cloudy, morning fog, 8 and 22. Polokwane, partly cloudy, 8 and 18. Mahakeng, partly cloudy, 7 and 22. Vryburg, partly cloudy, 3 and 21. Mangaung, fine, 1 and 20. Kimberley, fine, 4 and 21. Uppington, fine, 9 and 24. Cape Town, fine, a light to moderate southerly wind, 13 and 19. George, cloudy, becoming fine from the evening, a light and variable wind, 10 and 18. Gqeberha, partly cloudy, light rain in places, a light to moderate southwesterly wind, 11 and 19. East London, partly cloudy, light rain in places, a moderate southwesterly wind, 15 and 18. eThekwini, fine at first, otherwise partly cloudy, isolated evening showers and rain, a moderate to fresh southerly wind, 10 and 22. Richards Bay, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, isolated evening showers and rain, a moderate northwesterly wind, 15 and 23. And Pietermaritzburg, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 4 and 22.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone, so you can go fast? Or for many to go together, so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
The Food Lovers Market experience is something special. Can you see that? It's rows of colourful fresh produce sourced just for you. Can you hear that? It's our blockmen preparing premium cuts just for you. Can you smell that? It's freshly baked bread from our bakery just for you. An experience brought to you by a friendly team ready to serve you. Food Lovers Market. It's in the experience.
Lindelani ladies want to change gears against reigning champs to relocate from the danger zone. However, Banyana Style say they will conquer the game and grab the vital 3 points. eThekwini meets Clorco. This is the Hollywood Men's Super League. Catch the Mzansi Queens on the page. Lindalani Ladies FC versus Mamelodi Sundowns Ladies FC on Sunday 30 June at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sports on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
21 minutes after 6, good morning. Russia has now directly blamed the US for a missile strike by Ukraine that killed 4 people on Russian territory, including 2 children. 150 other people were hurt when missile debris fell on a beach in Sevastopol in Crimea. The missile was supplied to Ukraine by the US. Russia claims that US military specialists programmed it to land where it did. It's provided no evidence of this. The US, as I understand it, says that Ukraine makes its own targeting decisions. Professor Abel Eerstehuizen is a professor of strategy at the Faculty of Military Science. Professor Eerstehuizen, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
In a way, this is exactly the kind of situation we've been worrying about, that we would see the US weapons killing Russian people. Now this kind of claim coming from Russia. How significant is this incident?
Yeah, I won't pay too much attention to this incident. It's part of the war of words that we could expect in a situation like this. It is typical of, in every war you have so-called collateral damage. Expect civilians to die. We have seen many civilians dying in Ukraine over the last 2 years. I think the underlying message here is one of Russia that's deeply uncomfortable with the involvement of the broader Western world in the war in Ukraine. And the fact that, the Western world is increasingly going to provide weapons that will have an effect in this war. And one has to be cautious when you talk about the effect of the weapon systems, but nonetheless, it will have an effect in this war. And I think, this is a war of words. On the one hand, it is showing Russia's discomfort with the way the war is going. We know, and this is important, Stephen, that the preparedness of states to conduct war is going through phases. We have seen Russia's ground offensive doing quite well up until about a month ago, and then it started running out of steam, and Russia is at the moment not doing that well in the ground war. So you see an up and down in the preparedness of states conducting war. And I think Russia is at a point where it is going through a down phase and it needs to rethink what it is doing. But Russia is still very much a player in this war.
You say that, Russia's ground offensive seems to have lost a bit of momentum. Has something specifically changed? Is this about more American weapons arriving after decisions by American politicians?
Yeah, I think it is, this is a deeply military thing. I almost want to say that offensive tend to lose momentum over time, that military forces ought to take operational pauses because people getting tired, machines going out of service, that kind of thing. So it's no strange thing if offensives, run into problems and they're taking operational pauses from time to time. I think the important factor here, perhaps 2 issues, Stephen. The one is one shouldn't rely too much on weapons, because weapons are just part of the bigger system that is used to make war. War making is, by implication, a systems approach. So rarely do you find a game changer type of weapon. That we know from history. But the second very important thing I think one has to highlight here is that people is, by implication, very important for war. And from a people's perspective, Russia has a definitive advantage. Russia is simply a country with strategic depth in terms of people. It's a population of 144 people. And so, it's a case of Russia has to replenish and it has to mobilize. Of course, there's a lot of political realities involved in mobilizing for war. But eventually, Russia will have to bring more people to the front. And one should also say, bring them to the front well-trained. But the bottom line is, and this is the point that I want to make, that Russia has a definitive advantage in terms of people over the Ukraine, irrespective of how much weapons the Ukraine is receiving from the West.
In other words, Russia just is bigger. It boils down to that. Very quickly, Prof.
It is absolutely the case.
Very quickly, if we can, Russia's a concerted attack on Ukraine's electricity network. I mean, if it's able to disable that, that'll have a big impact on people, surely.
Absolutely, and it has a strategic impact on the Ukraine, and one can see that playing out in Ukraine at the moment. And you can see how Russia is shifting and has the freedom at the moment to shift from a ground warfare to a more strategic bombing campaign attacking the power net of the Ukraine. But one has to say, at the same time, you're seeing from the Ukraine side them shifting their offensive, because Ukraine at the moment is very much focused on what is happening in the Crimean Peninsula area, and it seems as if that's a focus area, and they're trying to get the Russians out of there. And we have seen that Russia have declared a state of emergency in parts of the Ukraine, the peninsula area. So two sides that are shifting their strategy the whole time. But this war is far from over. And if one say this, Stephen, there's a fundamental question that's hanging in the air, and that is what is required from Russia to win this war, and what will winning this war looks like for Russia. When will Russia know that it has accomplished what it wanted to do? And perhaps this is a point of discussion one needs to start at, because at the moment we're sitting with a never-ending war, and we don't know what the two sides really want to accomplish in this war, and when will enough be enough.
Sure, Professor, we'll have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Thank you. Professor Abel Eerstehuis is Professor of Strategy at the Faculty of Military Science at Stellenbosch.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Tough draw for the Blitzboks.
Yeah, they'll have to bring their A game to tackle these top teams. South Africa finds itself in Pool A alongside New Zealand, Ireland and Japan. And this is for the Paris 2024 Rugby Sevens. World Rugby announcing the pools. Now, the team qualified, that's the Blitzboks, at the World Rugby Sevens repechage in Monaco. The Blitzboks reached the quarterfinals in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, and they secured bronze in Rio 2016. Now, in the women's competition, South Africa will debut in Pool B, facing Australia, Ireland and Great Britain. The top two teams from each pool, plus the two best third-place teams, will progress to the quarterfinals. Cricket now, following his brilliant performance with the ball against the West Indies in the Super 8 of the ICC T20 World Cup. South Africa's left-arm spinner Tabraiz Shamsi is confident in the team's newfound success. Now, Shamsi's 3 wickets of 27 balls headlined a fine bowling performance which featured 12 overs of spin, with Aiden Markram and Keshav Maharaj also in the wickets. Here's player of the match, Shamsi.
Yeah, look, obviously most of the games have been a lot closer than we would have personally liked. But the amazing thing is that, this new Proteas team always seems to get over the line, We've been put under huge pressure basically in every single game that we've played. And, the boys have managed to find a way to win. no matter what the situation is, no matter how close the game is. So that's really pleasing for us as a unit, and it's sort of like, in a funny way, we're looking forward to it.
In the meantime, Australia's T20 World Cup hopes hanging by a thread after Rohit Sharma's 92 led India to a 24-run win in St. Lucia. India finished top of Super 8 with a perfect record and will face the defending champions England in the semi-finals in Guyana. That's on Thursday at 4:30. Soccer action, Spain eliminated Albania from Euro 2024 with a 1-0 victory, and Italy broke Croatia's hearts with a late equaliser, ensuring the defending champions progress to the last 16 of Euro 2024 with a 1-1 draw. That's a wrap of your sport. We'll bring you more on Sunrise. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. We'll find out more about the water situation and investment that's coming up next. You're with SFM leading the conversation at 6:30.
In your news making headlines for this hour, 58 members of the Mkondo Sizwe party led by Dr. John Hlophe will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. They had informed Parliament that they would not be available to be sworn in with other elected members just over a week ago. In other news, COSATU says it's expecting the ANC as the leader of the GNU to ensure that government is biased towards the working class and defending the rights of workers as well as accelerating the transformation agenda. The union says that the Democratic Alliance is to be a part of the GNU. It must abandon what COSATU calls its anti-worker and anti-transformation agenda. And lastly, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has been sued in the New York federal court by Israelis who accuse the agency of aiding and abetting the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. I'll be back at 7 with more on these and other stories. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Looks like an issue, possibly a crash around Xavier Street or Monde on the Mike 1. It's very heavy coming through from Uncle Charlie's this morning. That section of the Mike 1 North, heavy backlogs. You might want to push through Uncle Charlie's on the N12 and off ramp at Clip River Drive and go through Boysons to avoid that one. Durban still queuing up through Kongela and Bilo. Looks like a crash before Victoria Embankment causing that delay. And motorists driving into Cape Town has been a smack on the N1 just around the N7 highway bridge. So traffic backlogging coming through from the Plattekloof Hill area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Ntaleng Lechele, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Stephen. I'm well, thanks. I hope you're good.
Good, all right. How are the markets moving?
So as markets started the week off on a mixed note, in the US, we saw the Dow Jones hit a 1-month high yesterday as investors sold big tech names in favor of other sectors such as banks and energy. This, of course, comes as Nvidia's shares continue to tank. Over in Asia, those markets trading mostly higher, following the mixed cues from Wall Street overnight as traders seemed cautious to make significant moves ahead of some crucial economic data, including a report on US personal income and spending due later this week. Traders are also eyeing comments from US Fed officials for additional clues on the outlook for interest rates. Here at home, sentiment has been quite positive despite the mixed cues we've seen from Asia and the US. The JSE All Share ended yesterday in the green, up 0.6%. Meanwhile, in the currency scene, the rand has slightly weakened, with traders exercising caution ahead of that all-important cabinet announcement from President Ramaphosa. It's sitting at 18.11 against the dollar.
And then the Biden administration launching an investigation directed at Chinese telecoms companies.
Now, this is in a move that could heighten tensions between the US and China. The Biden administration launched an investigation into China Mobile, China Telecom, and China Unicom. According to Reuters sources, this probe is over concerns that the firms could exploit access to American data through their US cloud and internet businesses by providing it to Beijing. Now, the investigation is ongoing, with US authorities issuing subpoenas to all three companies, and they've also completed risk assessments for China Mobile and China Telecom, but the investigation into China Unicom is at an earlier stage. This move has raised alarm, with some analysts saying the ongoing investigation reflects those escalating tech rivalry tensions between the two global powers, as the administration looks to close all remaining channels for Chinese firms to gain access to US data.
And then confidence in the local agricultural sector taking a knock.
Now, this is according to the Agribusiness Confidence Index, which dropped to its lowest level since the global financial crisis in 2009. Agricultural Business Chamber Chief Economist Wandile Sihlobo said the drought caused by El Nino had a significant impact on the production of summer grains and oil seeds, which in turn had a substantial influence on market sentiment in the second quarter. Now, the ACI has 10 sub-indices which provide an outlook on sentiment in the sector. In the second quarter, the index saw a mixed performance across its components. 5 sub-indices declined while the others showed slight improvement. Moving ahead, the index shows that participants are still concerned about prospects, highlighting lingering animal disease challenges, delays at the ports, and heightened geopolitical tensions as concerns for the sector.
In Tarling, thanks very much indeed. Back, of course, in an hour. More business news through the day here on SAFM.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning. Egypt's government extending daily power cuts, not 2 hours, 3 hours. Why is this?
Stephen, this is a load shedding that has affected Cairo because of the heat wave. But since July last year, Stephen, they've been having problems with power or electricity due to the failing gas production, also the rising demand and the shortage of foreign currency that has pushed Cairo to go on a load shedding schedule. Also the issues that we know of Egypt having been struggling with all those issues, Stephen, is the issue of also their relation with Sudan and Ethiopia in terms of the Great Renaissance Dam, because those are the issues that will have kept Cairo with the lights on. But now they're having a 3-hour power cut that has started yesterday until the end of the week.
And then the trip by the Congolese President Ngieso to Russia. What's happening here?
Stephen, Sergei Lavrov made a stop in Central Africa last week, if you can recall, but also Sassou Nguesso was in the Russia-Africa summit last year. So this visit for Sassou Nguesso to meet with Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin is to engage on issues of oil, mining, military sector, and that's how, if you can look, Kremlin has been moving towards the Sahel region, but now moving to the Great Lakes with the visit of the President of Republic of Congo.
And then in Haiti, the first group of Kenyan police officers going to Haiti, they're due to leave today.
Stephen, they are due to leave today on Sunday. William Ruto, actually yesterday, William Ruto had to do a farewell departure of 400 officers, who is the first team to leave to Haiti. And he says that the other 600 police will be going to Haiti as well. This is part of the multinational mission that was agreed between UN and the US and Haiti. We know, Stephen, it's not only Kenya, the Jamaica, Bahamas, Barbados, Chad, and Bangladesh have also pledged to send 2,500 strong mission, which is partly funded by the US, Stephen, to deal with the crisis of gangster in Haiti, Port-au-Prince.
And then in Somalia, their ambassador to the United Nations, they're accusing Ethiopian troops of making illegal incursions across their border.
Stephen, they are choosing Ethiopia because, remember, Ethiopia is part of the African Union peacekeeping mission that is phasing out. They're supposed to phase out by end of July, but it appears the Somalian Foreign Ministry is now extending it until September. Now, Ethiopia did not respond to this accusation that was leveled by the ambassador of Somalia to the United Nations. This tension also, you remember, started early this year with Somaliland and Addis Ababa talking about the port in Sudan. In Somalia, that has angered Mogadishu. So this has been a tension that's been going on between Somalia and Ethiopia.
And then in our archives, this day, 25th of June, 1975. Very important.
It's a public holiday in our neighboring country, Mozambique, the land of Samora Machel. It was on this day, Stephen, 1975, when Mozambique was liberated from its colonial master, the Portuguese. And we know that that struggle of Frelimo was launched in 1962 by the leadership of Eduardo Mondlane, as well as the former late President Samora Machel, who took over. And he's the one who delivered the country to the independence in 1975. Coincidentally, Stephen, Mozambique decides also this year in October, and we still have a mission of SADC in DRC, that is all, in Mozambique, that is also facing out. The Rwandese are still there. The Koreans, it means that they are moving to Mozambique. Asante sana LG as facilitating the conversation, SAFM observing the youth man.
Arrest Advocate Sipho Mantilla, thank you very much indeed. Back, of course, tomorrow. More news from our continent through the day here on SAFM, 20 minutes to 7.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Good to hear from you this morning, and of course still waiting Cabinet, still trying to work out who is going to take which position and how that's going to work. It seems we'll try and get confirmation on this, that President Cyril Ramaphosa did meet with the DA leader John Steenhuisen yesterday, and I'm sure that this is the only issue that was discussed. The other issue is what kind of sort of consultation people should have, how do you consult on something like this? What do you agree to and what do you refuse to agree to? It's actually a very interesting question, conducting negotiations like this. That's one of the reasons there's been so much interest in this. And I get a sense also that, it's not entirely clear to me what's happening in government during this time. We'll speak to Vincent Magwenya at some point this morning and just hear from him about this. Voice notes coming through on the issue of the new government on 0614 104 107.
I think here, after agreeing these 10 parties on being the government of potential unit, they were supposed to set a framework of how the position and power will be shared. Now we've got a crisis. The ANC now, because they've been voted in, they got a president. They want to decide alone about positions. That's nonsense. By invoking the constitution. No, that's nonsense. Because at the end of the day, they are going to account. The DA is right because they will account when the government fails. So they have to have some power and control of some part of the government in some way.
All right, thank you for that. Just put your name on a voice note, please, if you can remember. Let's go to Malusi. Malusi, you're on the line from Nkandla. Good morning.
Hello, how are you, sir?
I'm well. Go for it.
Yes, I'm okay. I'm just saying, when MK says we are too fast for the elections or for the election results and coalition, all that stuff, it's been like they are no, they are not interested on leading government or on working together with the other parties. But now you can see that whatever they were saying, they said no, MK is 1-2 cousin alone. So now check, DA is saying no, we want about 20% of the thing, what can I say? But actually, what they're saying, they really want the positions and they really want to govern, and they're controlling the ANC, of which is not the willing of the voters. The parties were supposed to come down to the voters and say, now we are in this situation, there's no need to rush for government while the citizens, they don't understand what's going on. That is my point.
Why do you believe the DA is dominating the ANC? I mean, it's the president who makes the appointments, and we could find that he goes ahead without them, or he could, give them weaker ministries or something. Why do you believe the DA is dominating the ANC?
We hear that they just signed, ANC just signed the agreement without even understanding what is the meaning of that agreement. Now DA is saying you can't do anything without us. That was the thing that DA already did. DA already know that it won't ever lead South Africa. So they were busy thinking about what we're going to do to take the power from these people. What we're going to do to do something about these people. Now, ANC didn't ever think about that. Maybe they will be in this trouble. So DA was already thinking about it. That is why we're saying now that the plan for DA is winning and ANC is going down, deep down.
All right, Malusi and Nkandla, thanks very much indeed. Interesting view on that. And of course, I think a reference to that conversation last week where Helen Zille seemed to say that Fikile Mbalula had not understood the agreement that he had signed. 16 minutes to 7.
Makoti Down Products is a proudly South African family business, started more than 30 years ago with 12 geese and a piece of material. Makoti manufactures duvets, pillows, sleeping bags and high-quality Egyptian cotton linen. Our down products are suitable for people with dust mite allergies and come with a lifelong guarantee. And we offer a nationwide cleaning service for all your feather and down products. Visit us at makoti.co.za or call us on 041 992 2395 for quality down Makoti down.
Are you ready to buy or build your first home or buy a stand anywhere in South Africa? If you are a South African citizen, you and your spouse have never benefited from a government housing subsidy program, and your household income is between 3,501 and 22,000 Rand per month, your dream can be realized by applying for a first home finance subsidy. To apply, just log into the First Home Finance application online portal at firsthomefinance.co.za or call a call center agent on 010-085-2199 to assist you for free with completing your First Home Finance online application. Beware, applying for First Home Finance subsidy is free. Do not pay anyone when applying for the subsidy. The NHFC is an agency of the National Department of Human Settlements.
In the heart of darkness, a beacon of light emerges. A brand new season is coming your way with your 2024 Miss South Africa Top 30. Hosted by our reigning queen, Miss South Africa, we embark on a transformative journey. Join us for the spectacular new season of Crown Chasers.
Crown Chasers is back.
Starts 29 June at 8:30 p.m. only on S3 Open Up.
SAFM 104 to 107. Nationwide.
14 minutes to 7. Well, while Rand Water starts its major maintenance program in Gauteng, some more warnings this week about how there could be difficult water problems in that province in the next few years, mainly because of a lack of investment in infrastructure at the moment. Rand Water is conducting that big maintenance program. It's lasting 5 weeks. That could result in some disruptions. Also, phase 2 of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project starting several years behind schedule. Professor Anya du Plessis is an associate professor at UNISA and an expert on water management. Professor du Plessis, good morning.
Good morning.
We all know about Rand Water's big maintenance program underway at the moment, but you suggest we might actually have much bigger problems in Gauteng in the next few years. What are you worried about?
Well, our infrastructure overall is not in a very good state. I think Rand Water should be commended on actually doing their annual maintenance. Yes, it's over a long period of time, but the problem that we are facing is that our municipalities are not coming up to or showing up to the game. If we look at what Joburg Water is currently doing, they have now improved on their communication by saying where the stationary trucks are and where the roaming water tankers are going to be, but that's still not enough. We're sitting with a backlog of, I think, over 150 billion Rand or something like that. They're still not budgeting enough just for current maintenance. And if we're going to carry on in this state, the backlog is just going to exacerbate further water challenges. And like we've seen now with Rand Water, doing their maintenance, unfortunately, because Joburg Water has such a slow response time with bursting pipes, leakages, and so on, we are now seeing that certain water challenges in the city are now being exacerbated, with some areas either not receiving any water for, I think it was in Fairland, parts of Northcliffe and Berario, absolutely no water for 9 days, and now there's just a trickle, whereby they said that they're not able to find the problem. The residents went out, they found the problem. It was pipes that Joburg Water, obviously, they tried to fix it. It was leaking once again. Joburg Water sends out another team. Now we can't find the issue. It's now due to maintenance. So it's such communication like that. If you carry on with this, finger pointing and blaming always towards Rand Water, we are in Joburg and in City and Tshwane and Ekurhuleni and the Greater Gauteng are going to keep on sitting with this issue if municipalities don't show up.
I mean, do the municipalities actually have enough money to do what needs to be done? 150 billion Rand, I wouldn't think so.
Well, the issue is there, Stephen, is that they obviously get a budget from Treasury. They are able to ask for more money, or they need to go to like the Water Partnerships Office that was established, or they have to go to DBSA and get alternative funding. But that's not just the biggest issue here. Yes, you have funding issues. However, if we come to the end of every single financial year, most municipalities just send the money back to Treasury, meaning that despite them getting money to perform maintenance and ensure that, Joburg water residents have wet taps at this point in time, they're still sending money back to the Treasury, meaning that they haven't used the money.
There's a lot going on here, and we don't actually have a Water Affairs Minister at the moment. That person will come into office at some point. Where do they need to prioritise? And we've seen the previous Minister, Senator Mkhunu, he may be reappointed, I don't know, already trying to sort of take some powers from local government, let me put that better, trying to intervene earlier in local government.
Yeah.
Do you think that process needs to continue?
I think it definitely has to continue. I mean, we have been calling for accountability and transparency over the past, especially the past 3 years. And I think that the momentum that the Department of Water and Sanitation have been building, that needs to continue. So I would ask the powers that be is to ask that, that we have some kind of continuity within the water and sanitation space, because we saw what happened during 2010 to 2020. It was absolute shambles. We didn't have a blue drop report, no green drop report, little accountability. It was like the Cowboys were running the show. But now it seems like things are being ring-fenced. For example, you have the Percy Stewart wastewater treatment works that's been in shambles over the past couple of years, diverting sewage right into the Blaubankspruit, ruining properties downstream. But what has now happened is the DWS, they have issued a court case, and what that then enables them to do is to say, okay, fine, we are giving you this amount of money. However, we are ring fencing this money, and we're bringing in, let's say, private sector or other spaces from the public sector, as well as experts, in to come and assist.
Professor.
And that, unfortunately, that's the key, Stephen, is collaboration. We can't just say we're going to do everything on our own. At the end of the day, we don't want to leave anyone behind, despite whether they vote for whoever. It's water is a human right. So I would advise that we stick with continuity and try to keep the momentum.
Professor Anya du Plessis, thank you. Associate Professor at UNISA and expert on water management, 8 minutes to 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There are, in fact, 2 crash scenes now on Joburg's Mike 1. The first at Monday, which is back things up from Uncle Charlie's N12 exit. That seems to be getting a little bit better, but then you're straight away into another delay up through Crown into a crash at the Mike 1 by Schmidt Street in Braamfontein. So the Mike 1 into that queue, heavy from Boysons through Crown and up through the double-decker. Behind that, the M2 pushing back deep through central Joburg, lining up to try and get into that Mike 1. So if you can avoid the Crown, that'd be a really good call. The N1 getting busy through Midrand, queues between Old Joburg Road and New Road. Looks like just pressure of traffic on that run through this morning. Durban, if you leave the Higginson Highway route coming out of Chatsworth, that's quite slow through Havenside, Mobeni, and down towards the N2. The M4 inbound is all clear. There was some roadworks and an earlier crash up at Victoria Embankment this morning, but that's all out of the way. The N2 is starting to queue already from the M7 through Spaghetti Junction up to the roadworks at Westwood Mall. And if you're driving to Cape Town, just give yourself extra time to get through on the N1 route this morning. It's been pretty gentle through school holidays, but it's completely different this morning. With a crash N1 into Cape Town by the N7 Jakes Kerwell Drive. The backlog of traffic is standing back towards Plattercliff Hillside. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
And we would buy 500 cars and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime. Only on S3. Open up.
Agenda setting conversations of the day.
5 minutes to 7 the time. Good morning. The SA Medical Association saying it's continuing with its campaign to stop what it calls the criminalisation of medical errors. In other words, to stop doctors from facing criminal charges if they, while treating a patient, maybe make a mistake or the patient passes away. Currently, there's at least one case involving a doctor, Peter Beale. He faces criminal charges amid claims he conducted surgeries on 3 children who did not need operations. Dr. Mvisi Mzukwa is the chair of the SA Medical Association. Dr. Mzukwa, good morning.
Good morning to you, Stephen, to your listeners, and thanks for inviting me.
We've seen this case. There are 1 or 2 other high-profile cases as well. Are these having an impact on the way in which doctors are treating patients? I mean, if you could face criminal charges while treating a patient because something goes wrong, and something often goes wrong in some cases, I mean, some of these cases are very difficult, is that stopping doctors from operating in the normal way?
Yes, Steve. Let me start by saying that the South African Medical Association is not really saying that if there's gross negligence, that doctor must not be touched. That doctor must still account to the authorities. But what we're saying is that the way this is investigated or handled, it really makes other doctors to start identifying higher risk cases and stay away from such cases because they know the implications. Because you can imagine, Steve, if you have a person who comes to casualty and has got a heart, a stabbed heart, there are 50-50 chances of that person surviving or dying. So it's a complex issue where it's just the person who is holding a scalpel who is being held accountable and not the whole system that is assessed to see where the problem was and what led to that adverse event.
I mean, the obvious way to do this, I suppose, is that if something goes wrong or if someone believes something goes wrong, you would lay a complaint at the Health Professions Council first, and only if they make a finding would he even ever contemplate a criminal case.
Yes, Steve, that is the case, depending on how cases are being handled at the HPCSA. But also, I don't think we have a proper transparent system, that is user-friendly to communities, where if they have a complaint, they can just lay a complaint even in the local structures, and that gets elevated to wherever, so that people get the accountability they want. So that system is not, HPCSA is just a pie in the sky that is not known by communities. They don't know how issues are being handled, and they don't know how to access the HPCSA. So hence they use what they are used to. They just go to the court of law. So and we don't think that approach assists in the bigger scheme of things.
I mean, doctors will get placed in a sort of legal jeopardy, and as you point out, it means that some doctors won't take cases where there's a real prospect that the person's life could be saved because the doctor will be worrying about themselves. And we've seen this kind of legalization. I mean, I know doctors who spend an absolute fortune on medical malpractice insurance. It's so expensive that there are now certain services they just won't provide.
It's so true, Steve. We have seen already, as indicated by some in the HPCSA, that they've started to note that doctors are shying away from attending complex surgical conditions because they understand now that if there's an error, which is inherent in medicine, it could be not even caused by the doctor. It could be due to the condition itself complicating. So and that is attributed to the skills of the doctor and all these things. So it is very important, because not only that, Steve, it also makes people who make mistakes in the healthcare sector to hide those instead of reporting them and improves the healthcare system, because if there are errors that are reported, then there's an audit that will lead up to the improvement of the healthcare system, and that assists the very same patients that we purport to be representing.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Mvuyisi Mzukwa is the chair of the SA Medical Association. In a moment, we'll hear from the head of the presidency in the ANC, get an update from Sibongile Basani on the negotiations with the DA. We'll hear from Vincent Magwenya, spokesperson to the presidency and government, just about what happens in government during this time. Also, what's happening in Gauteng. There's still no cabinet there. All of that to come. You are there, SAFM, leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
Top stories for this hour. MK party members to be sworn in, and COSATU calls on the GNU to support the working class. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipa. 58 members of the MK party led by Dr. John Hlophe will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. They had informed Parliament that they would not be available to be sworn in with other elected members just over a week ago. At the time, the party had indicated that it is challenging the outcomes of the May 29th election. Zelene Merrington reports.
The MK party missed the group swearing-in ceremony that Parliament had on the 14th and 15th of this month. In order to serve as members of Parliament, they must swear or affirm faithfulness to the Republic and obedience to the Constitution. In the run-up to the elections, one of the party's leaders and founders, President Jacob Zuma, had indicated that they would change the Constitution if elected into power. The party has in the meantime indicated that the impeached former judge, John Hlophe, will be its leader in Parliament. Zelene Merrington, SABC News, Parliament.
COSATU says it expects the ANC as the leader of the GNU to ensure that the government is biased towards the working class and defending the rights of workers, as well as accelerating the transformation agenda. The union says if the Democratic Alliance is to be part of the GNU, it must abandon what COSATU calls is its anti-worker and anti-transformation agenda. COSATU General Secretary Soli Petwe says the union will continue to hold the ANC accountable.
COSATU welcomes the GNU's declaration of intent commitment to protect workers' rights and to engage with labor, business and civil society on the GNU's policy platform that was included in the differences to the Federation its concern. The Federation will help facilitate dialogue with social partners at NETLEC to contribute meaningfully towards the GNU's policy mandate.
The family of a 2-year-old boy whose body was found in a pit latrine in Ulundi in northern KwaZulu-Natal say they suspect foul play. Liso Lenkosi Lamula went missing on Friday, and his body was discovered yesterday inside a pit toilet that had been used by community members during a traditional ceremony at the weekend. Family member Nontoeko Lamula explains.
We are devastated with the incident, and it is so painful. First area that we searched was the toilet until Saturday, and on Saturday we searched again. On Sunday, that is where we found the child in the toilet pit. When the aunt came back from the ceremony, she was surprised that the community was looking for the child, and we searched even across the river, and we opened the case at the police station.
In other news, police in the Western Cape say a 40-year-old suspect has handed himself over in connection to a shooting incident that led to the death of 49-year-old Wendy Kloppers. Spokesperson FC van Wyk says the suspect will appear at the Cape Town Magistrate Court today on charges of murder and attempted murder.
According to reports, the suspects arrived at the housing construction site on foot and asked to speak with an unknown individual when he suddenly started shooting at the individuals on the site. One victim, 49-year-old Wendy Kloppers, died on the scene due to injuries sustained, and the second victim, 40 years old, sustained one gunshot to her arm.
Cape Town residents who will be without water until tomorrow have begun to utilize water tankers provided by the City of Cape Town. The city has embarked on an infrastructure upgrade program where 7 valves will be replaced in the Cape Flats water network. MMC for Water and Sanitation, Zahid Badruddin.
Critical for us to do so because these valves are obviously old. They've been underground for a long time. Some of them have gotten stuck in certain positions, as some of these mechanical elements do. So we now have to replace these valves with brand new valves that are going to last almost 100 years. It helps us because it means then we can control any water leaks, or we can control the area where there's a water leak because we can shut off closer to a particular community. We can reduce water wastage.
And lastly, looking further afield, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has been sued in the New York federal court by Israelis who accuse the agency of aiding and abetting the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel. The complaint was filed in the U.S. District Court for Manhattan, including an allegation that the agency spent more than a decade helping Hamas build its terror infrastructure and personnel needed to carry out the attack. Schoenbeis Priest reports.
The lawsuit also claims that by paying their staff in American dollars, UNRWA put hundreds of millions of currency into circulation in Gaza, siphoned off by Hamas to pay for tunneling and weapons that aided them in the October attack. The UN and its personnel enjoy broad immunity from prosecution under an international convention, a position reiterated by an UNRWA spokesperson. The lawsuit names current UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini, who has urged resistance against Israeli efforts to disband the agency. Shervin Bricepies, SABC News, New York.
Recapping the top story at 7, 58 members of the MK party led by Dr. Jean Hlophe will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
Eva, thank you. Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Do you think you're paying too much on your car insurance? 56-year-old Dylan said no to sky-high insurance premiums. He's now insured with Outsurance and only pays 756 Rand a month to insure his white 2023 Haval Jolion S. To follow in Dylan's footsteps, simply SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It's cricket. The Proteas captain Aidan Markram gives his assessment, saying the Proteas tried to kill it too early as they scraped into the T20 World Cup semi-finals. And in rugby, the Blitzboks handed a tough draw at the Paris Olympics 2024. We'll bring you details just before 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just want to kick it off in Emlatheni, Mpumalanga. Traffic flows on local routes, the N12 and the N4, looking a lot better than it did this time yesterday. And that's a good indication that the visibility and driving conditions are much improved and pretty normal. No sort of slowdown that we can notice that would point to visibility issues because of mist and fog. Joburg, the Mike 1, heavy delays coming up from Ormonde and Boysons. There's been a crash on the Mike 1 as you come out of the double-decker, just up by Submit Street in Braamfontein. So the Mike 1, very heavy into Crown, and behind that the M2, pushing a big queue of traffic back through towards Joe Slovo. Some real problems getting out of the M2 and in towards the N1, the Mike 1 North into that crash. New Road at 16th in Midrand. There's been a collision there. That's likely to be busy. It's a busy route, the New Road around that N1 highway bridge this time of morning. Durban, the N2 pretty heavily backed from the M7 through to Westwood Mall. The earlier issues on the M4 Southern Freeway have all been cleared up. That route has normalised its flow. And Cape Town, heavy pressure on the N1 into town this morning. If you're driving in from the Belleville side, big backlog of traffic from Plattekloof Hill down to a crash just by the N7 Goodwood exit. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 7, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. In a moment, the view from the ANC on the national negotiations. We'll speak to their head of presidency, Sibongile Basani. We'll hear from the DA on their view on Gauteng negotiations. We'll hear from the presidency as well. Vincent Magwenya on standby to talk to you about the issues around how government runs during this time when, from what I understand, we don't actually have cabinet ministers. We look at the issue of homelessness and these urban sort of tent cities that spread sprang up in Cape Town. We'll look at that from 8:30. Good morning, 9 after 7.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean, and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the city of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Do you think you're paying too much on your car insurance? 56-year-old Dylan said no to sky-high insurance premiums. He's now insured without insurance and only pays 756 Rand a month to insure his white 2023 Haval Jolion S. To follow in Dylan's footsteps, simply SMS out to 30754 for a quote. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
Big stories of the day. #SAFM Sunrise.
Well, still no cabinet. Several reports indicating that the ANC and the DA are still at loggerheads over positions and the number of cabinet ministers the DA should receive in a new coalition government. Reports this morning that, in fact, John Steenhuisen, the leader of the DA, and President Cyril Ramaphosa met yesterday. Several publications also reporting today that the DA is demanding 6 ministers and 7 deputy ministers, including the position of deputy president or minister in the presidency. The ANC saying in a public statement yesterday that some parties were making what it calls outrageous demands through the media. Also, no cabinet in Gauteng yet, where the DA did vote in favour of the ANC's Premier, Panyaza Lesufi. The head of presidency for the African National Congress is Sibongile Basani. Sibongile, good morning.
Good morning and good morning to your listeners.
Firstly, are you able to confirm, did President Ramaphosa meet Steenhuisen yesterday?
No, basically what is happening, Stephen, is that, as you would know, this is a government of national unity. We've just passed the first stage. We're getting to the second stage where it's not only about the DA, it's about other parties. Because the principle is that as the president would be using his prerogative, it is important that in the spirit of the GNU, he talks to various parties. So it's not only about one party of the GNU. There are 10 other parties that there are engagements with.
Okay, so he has spoken to Cyril Ramaphosa, to John Steenhuisen and to other people.
President is talking to all other parties. It's not about one party, and that's what we want media to know, because the impression created is that this is a GNU, it's about the ANC and the DA. No, it's about other parties. You have the PA, you have IFP, you have other parties. So in the spirit of that GNU, we know for a fact that the president has to use his prerogative. So he would be consulting any other party.
Okay. So I presume then that those parties also have certain demands that they're making. I mean, they'll also want certain things. It's a very difficult puzzle to put together.
In fact, Stephen, it should be common sense that when you are part and parcel of the GNU, you would want not just demands, you would want to be accommodated in various areas. That is common sense. That is common nature of the negotiations. All that we have been saying in our statement is that because this is a process that you need to make sure that you handle with care, you don't need to put undue pressure through other forces like the media, who are external in terms of management of that particular process, because ours as the ANC has always been to create stability, to create certainty. So negotiations have got to be taken care of, managed with due care, so that you don't create undue anxieties, you know. in the public discourse.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that. One of the major issues seems to be the issue of, or the principle of proportionality. As I understand it, the ANC seems to be saying parties should get cabinet posts based on their proportion of the vote in the elections. To put it another way, the DA would get, 20%. The DA is saying they should get cabinet posts based on their proportion of support in the coalition. That's quite a big difference in interpretation. So why does the ANC believe it would be on the proportion of vote in the elections? MK and EFF, for example, aren't in the coalition, so what would happen to the leftover seats if we used the ANC's principle?
We are not in coalition with the DA. We have initiated a process of government of national unity where we signed a statement of intent which outlines the framework on how it should be managed, and that statement of intent outlines even the principles of the GNU. And part of those principles is about abiding by the Constitution. So the issue here is that we are not treating the GNU as a typical what I would say, it's not a coalition. That's why we refer it to a government of national unity. There are 10 other parties, and these parties obviously, like I said earlier on, it is common cause that they would make this request and so on. So whatever negotiations that are taking place in line with the statement of intent and the fact that we really need to take stability into consideration, and we need to take various principles that have been outlined on the statement of intent.
Okay. I presume you're still talking, right? I mean, are the talks constructive? Let me use that word.
Well, currently the talks are constructive. Those who have entered the GNU, we want to believe that the talks are constructive. That is why we frown upon any behavior that seems to sort of to disturb the talks, because leadership is about managing sensitive issues responsibly, and that is not against the principle of transparency. You manage sensitive issues responsibly, so that once you have narrowed the differences, let me put it that way for lack of better, once you have narrowed them, you are able to communicate a decision of this entity, the GNU, with responsibility, with coherence.
Sibongile Basani, thank you. Do appreciate the time. Head of the presidency in the ANC with SAFM, 17 minutes after 7. So it's now 6 days with no cabinet ministers, and as I understand the Constitution, the previous cabinet ministers automatically left office. Their terms expired when President Ramaphosa took the oath of office last week. In other words, there are no cabinet ministers right now. Vincent Magwenya is the spokesperson to the president in government. Vincent, good morning to you. How is government running without ministers?
Well, good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners. Government is running very well, ably led by the Director Generals, who are working closely with the President, who currently is the only one that is vested with executive authority by the Constitution. And so there's no paralysis in government, because the Constitution does not leave us in a vacuum. And as you know, there are also no prescribed timelines in which the President can make cabinet appointments and announce them. We are in a slightly unusual situation in that there's a political process that is currently underway that has to be concluded. And once that process is concluded, then the President will be able to exercise his constitutional prerogative of appointing a cabinet.
You call it slightly unusual, Vincent. It's never happened before, so it's a little more than slightly unusual. Maybe it'll become the new normal. Are there certain decisions or applications or documents that ministers have to sign personally? For example, if the health minister, does the health minister need to sign an application for an organ transplant? Or could a home affairs minister have to personally sign certain documents? Things like that. Are there things that only ministers can do?
Yeah, there are. There are actions and decisions that are vested with executive authority, where ministers have to sign off certain decisions or actions by their respective departments. But having said that, we're not at a stage where we are faced with a potential service delivery disruption just because we do not have a cabinet yet. In the event that there was urgent actions that needed executive authority, as I said, the Director Generals will confer to the President, who currently is vested with that executive authority. And so no decision necessarily will be held back just because we don't have ministers at the moment.
As I understand the principle, Vincent, it would be that certain things can only be signed off by someone who's democratically elected. A minister is democratically elected. The president is democratically elected. That's why we have that principle. Other things can be done by the Directors General.
Correct. Director Generals are there as accounting officers. And so your normal day-to-day government operation is proceeding quite well and is not impacted by the absence of ministers.
How long can this go on? You are correct, of course. There is no legal date by which this has to be done. But work piles up, documents pile up, applications pile up. The President has plenty of things on his desk at the moment, I'm sure. In other words, this is not sustainable for 6 months. I mean, it may be sustainable for a couple more weeks yet, but it's not sustainable longer term.
Well, from the onset, Stephen, the President's intention was to wrap up the consultation process as soon as possible so that the country does not go through a prolonged period of uncertainty. That remains the commitment on the side of the President. Obviously, one has to appreciate the complexity of forming a government of national unity and the complexity of having to consult with multiple parties on not only the allocation of seats, but also on ensuring alignment in terms of priorities for the seventh administration, the work that will need to be done, as well as the capacity that will be required in order to deliver to that work. In this case, the focus is on cabinet. And so, that complexity has added a little bit more time in terms of finalizing the shape and form of cabinet. And I'm quite certain that in the next few coming days, that process will be concluded and the President will be in a position to announce his cabinet appointments.
Next few coming days, it's nicely open-ended, Vincent, not giving yourself a tight deadline.
No, well, I can't. As I said, the President and other leaders in the governing party are involved in a very complex process. But what is important, and the assurance that I can give you, is that the commitment to putting the country first and putting the country at the center of everything remains unwavering on the side of the President as well as the parties that are involved in the GNU.
Vincent Magwenya, thank you. Spokesperson to the President, you with SAFM, 22 minutes after 7. Well, while all of that's happening in national government, there's also no provincial government in Gauteng. On Sunday, the Gauteng provincial government said it was going to appoint a cabinet. That announcement was then postponed. Yesterday, the ANC's national spokesperson, Mahlengi Bengu Motsiri, told you the national ANC had asked Panyaza Lusifi to postpone that announcement. Solium Samanga is the Gauteng leader of the Democratic Alliance. Soli, good morning. At this stage, have you had conversations with the ANC about the makeup of a cabinet in Gauteng? Has there been discussion about how many positions you might get?
Stevens, we're not there yet. And good morning to you and good morning to the SAFM listeners. Let me appreciate the opportunity and start by saying that we are not there yet. We have been at a stage where we were discussing principles because you cannot discuss the issue of positions if you haven't discussed the issue of principle in terms of how you're going to share power, first of all. Second of all, how do you then deal with the issue of inclusion of other parties into the fray? So how do you then sort of dilute, positions going down? And the third thing is that you also now need to then discuss the issue of decision making, because none of us have been given 50%. Therefore, none of us cannot decide unilaterally on what needs to happen. The fourth thing is that we are saying that you need to also then be able to then put a systems in place that deals with disputes. You don't want what we've seen happening at a municipal level where disputes sometimes leads to motions of no confidence and all of those things. Therefore, you want to then iron out all these things and say, how do we put systems in place before you're able to then start discussing and talking about positions? And that's where we have been, Stephen.
So in other words, from what you say, it could be weeks before we get a Gauteng provincial government.
Not necessarily. Some of these things have already been agreed upon. The principles have already been agreed upon. What we were stuck on is, the issue of proportionality. That seems to be an uncomfortable conversation here in Gauteng, yet it was a very easy conversation in KZN, and this is why KZN was able to then move with speed, and that's what we're trying to resolve.
There's another principle to this. Are you, as the province of Gauteng for the DA, the only people negotiating about the situation in Gauteng, or could the national DA be talking to the national ANC about Gauteng as well?
Well, we have been given the authority to have a conversation here in Gauteng, but obviously, if there's going to be an impasse, it will have to then be moved, to the national negotiating team. So far, there has been the principles that we have both agreed on. And this is what we are thinking, that all these other issues that perhaps have come up can actually then be resolved. If not, then we'll have to then push them up. If we find it, and I must also highlight and state up front that we are not, and I'm not going to be using the media to be negotiating the DA's position into these negotiations. But I find it totally unacceptable that, between the ANC and the DA, there's only about a 6% gap. Yet you find that the other party wants 80% of the cabinet and want to give only about 22% of the cabinet. And this is where I think we'll get stuck.
They got, I think, 35% in Gauteng. You got 27%, I think, in Gauteng. If Lesotho were to go ahead and announce a cabinet without you, what would happen? Would you bring a motion of no confidence against him?
Well, we're not there. And I think it needs to be clear, Stevens, that we are not all about, the disruption if we don't get our way. But we're all about ensuring that when we are in government, we want to make sure that we're able to do the things that needs to be done in order to make sure that government works and works for the people. But should it be that, we are seeing that whatever is being put in place is not working for the people, we will surely then intervene. I know that, there might be people that might want to then smell blood and might want to move for motions of no confidence. And this is what we're trying to avoid by all means, from the get-go. And this is why we have been saying, let's all engage and negotiate in good faith. Let's put the residents of Gauteng and the residents of South Africa front. But let's also ensure that their views and what they've given us as the electoral outcomes is actually respected and should be reflected in what we are putting together as government. Let's not bully each other. Let's find ways of making it work for the people of Gauteng.
Solium Samanga, thank you. Gauteng, leader of the Democratic Alliance. You're there, SAFM 27 after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. That victory yesterday, Aiden Makram says they tried a bit too hard too early.
Absolutely. And will the Proteas be ready to take on Afghanistan? Well, it's going to be a thrilling semi-final. But the Proteas, their captain as well, relieved but not celebrating after defeating the West Indies by 3 wickets with 5 balls to spare in their T20 World Cup quarter-final. And now, despite the shaky batting, the bowlers excelled. Tabraiz Shamsi taking that 3 for 27. Aiden Markram, the captain, acknowledging the need for avoiding tricky situations.
Not going to be brainwashed by that, though. I think we'd have liked to be a lot more convincing in getting the job done with bat in hand. But I suppose it's been a story of our comp. We get ourselves into tricky positions and sort of by hook or by crook get over the line. So very chuffed with the win to go through. Obviously massive for us and fantastic for the change room. But moving forward, hopefully we can avoid those tricky situations.
The Proteas will now prepare to face Afghanistan in the semi-finals. The Afghanistan reaching their first ever T20 semi-final. They defeated Bangladesh by 8 runs, led by captain Rashid Khan's all-round performance. Afghanistan posted 115 for 5, with Rashid Khan hitting that crucial 19 of 10 balls. Despite rain interruptions and a tight chase, their bowlers held their nerve to restrict Bangladesh. This win now knocks Australia out of the tournament. In the meantime, rugby. The Blitzboks have been handed a challenging draw for the Paris Olympics 2024 Rugby Sevens. World Rugby announcing the pools, with the competition set to take place in the French capital from the 24th of July to the 30th of July. South Africa finds itself in Pool A alongside the top seeds New Zealand, Ireland and Japan. And after qualifying at the World Rugby Sevens repechage in Monaco, the Blitzboks reached the quarterfinals at Tokyo 2020 and secured bronze in Rio 2016. Now it will be the first time where they'll have two teams. The women's team, the South African team, are debuting in Pool B. They'll face Australia, Ireland and Great Britain. Let's go to soccer, where Spain eliminated Albania 2024 Euro action with a 1-0 victory, and Italy breaking Croatia's hearts with a 1-1 draw. And Belgium striker Jeremy Doku saying his side is aiming for a win when they play their final Group E game tomorrow. The Belgium side going to the game with all four teams in the group level on 3 points, with 1 win and 1 loss so far. They were beaten 1-0 by Slovakia in their opening game, but rebounded with a 2-0 win over Romania. Goal difference has Belgium third in the table, but remains all to play for. Here's Doku.
All four teams can go through, as you said. I think the pressure is there, but we just want to win the game. I think we don't have to look at the other teams. Even if we had already 6 points, we wanted to win the game. And now it's a little bit more tension, of course, but that's what we like.
Match kicks off later tomorrow at 6 p.m. That's a wrap on Sunrise. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Well, we'll hear from the ATM. They're outside the coalition. That's in the next half hour. You're with SFM leading the conversation, 7:30.
In your news making headlines for this hour, 58 members of the MK party led by Dr. John Hlophe will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. In other news, the High Court in Pretoria has sentenced Pamela Selani to 3 life terms for murder. The 47-year-old woman was found guilty for the murder of her 2 lovers, Michael Shingasa and a man known only as Gift from Malawi, as well as her son. And lastly, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has told the Israeli Defense Minister, who is in Washington, that the U.S. wants to avoid any escalation of the Gaza conflict in Lebanon. There have been frequent clashes between Israeli forces and Hezbollah militants along the Israeli-Lebanese border in recent days. I'll be back at 8 with more of these and other stories. For SFM News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a pretty easy Tuesday morning. We're still very much in school holidays. A big drop-off of traffic volumes, very, very noticeable. There are a couple of incidents, though, holding things up. The Mike 1 heading north through Joburg, crashed at Smith Street a bit earlier this morning, still causing a big delay on the Mike 1 from Gold Reef City up through Crown and through Braamfontein. Behind that, the M2 highway standing from Joe Slovo. Some real problems getting off the M2 west into that traffic on the Mike 1 going north. Delays into work at Sandton this morning. Winnie Mandela onto Sandton Drive for a turn through Parkmore. That's quite heavy. And some delays on the N12 and R24 routes in from the Ekurhuleni side. The closer you get to Galulis, the heavier that backlog gets. The N1 South Old Joburg Road through to New Road stays really busy across all lanes. And if you're driving into Durban, it's been an interesting traffic pattern for the M4 this morning. An earlier crash by Victoria Embankment cleared. That cleared the traffic. But there's now been another collision on that section around Congella. So the M4 coming up from Clarewood remains heavy backlogs. Clarewood, Rossborough areas, the back of that queue. Around the sort of M7 highway exit is where you queue up through Umbillo and on towards sort of Rick Turner Bridge and that crash scene. Durban's N2 stays heavy from the M7 up through towards that Westwood Mall territory and through the roadworks. Pietermaritzburg through to Howick. There is a truck crash that'll need to be recovered at Sadara. It's on the northbound carriageway, so just watch for that maybe at some point today. And Cape Town, the N1 inbound, all lanes open at that crash near the N7 Goodwood exit, but it's left a big backlog of traffic moving slowly. Very heavy today, in fact, from Belleville right past that scene down towards the Kuberg interchange. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intel Lenglet, morning again. How are the markets?
Starting off in Asia, stocks edging higher, defying a mixed day on Wall Street as speculation gained that the tech sector rally may be running out of steam. This, of course, as market darling Nvidia continues to tank. With that, the Japanese Nikkei is trading 0.7% higher, and China's Shanghai index is down 0.17%. In the US, futures in positive territory but range bound ahead of key economic data being released later this week. Back at home, stocks quite upbeat. We saw the JSE kick the week off in the green, with the all-share closing 0.6% higher. Shifting to the currency scene, the rand retracing some of those losses we saw earlier. It's slightly stronger at 18.09 to the dollar compared to 18.11, which was noted about an hour ago.
And then Naspers, the e-commerce unit, back in the black.
That's right. So Naspers' e-commerce unit has turned a profit ahead of schedule. The group had initially set a goal of achieving consolidated e-commerce profitability by the first half of the 2025 financial year. Now, the performance was mainly boosted by an upbeat performance by its classifieds business, OLX, and food delivery businesses. Zooming in on those units, OLX profits were driven by strong revenue growth and effective cost control measures, particularly in OLX Europe. And the delivery business, iFood, reported a strong performance with its core restaurant food delivery businesses generating bumper profits. So the group says there's more potential for that unit, pegging that on iFood's lending, grocery and meal vouchers business. When looking at the group's overall performance, we are seeing continued growth on that front as well. Revenues up 8% and core earnings more than doubled during the annual period.
And PPC's turnaround strategy starting to bear fruit.
That's right, Stephen. That turnaround strategy helped the group return to profitability. Profit after tax was at 88 million rand from a loss of 328 million rand in the previous year. The cement maker also delivered a 20.6% jump in its revenue. Growth in its top line was fueled by a strong performance in its Zimbabwean operation, while SA and Botswana cement revenues increased slightly by 5.2%, driven by price increases and increased sales of clinker to Zimbabwe, which then offset declining cement sales volumes. Now, this performance resulted in PPC declaring a dividend. This is the first payout it's declared in over 9 years. In the meantime, PPC has warned that tough times are still ahead, with newly appointed CEO Matthias Cardarelli saying the turnaround strategy is still underway and that it will take about 2 more years for the business to fully recover. Cardarelli also warned that the process is likely to lead to job losses.
Intaleng, thanks very much. Intaleng Lechela, business reporter, and of course back with us tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Sapiwe on the line from Midvale. Sapiwe, hi. You want to talk about the DA and the ANC?
You know what, Mr. Tivovo?
Go for it.
ANC must give DA what they want. That's all. Because they did sign that agreement between them and the DA. But now that means Mbalula didn't understand what really was saying on that agreement. They might just give them what they want, or Pala will come back. That's all.
Sure, Sapiwe, wow.
That's all.
I mean, you're just giving in then, because, I mean, there's no principle in that.
But they did sign. What was signing for?
Sorry, yeah. Well, I don't know if it's true that Fikile Mbalula didn't know what he was signing. That's just what Helen Zille said. That doesn't mean it's true, if you see what I mean. There's a whole big negotiating dance going on here, I suspect.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right.
Let's hope.
Yeah, all right, let's see.
Okay.
Sapiwe in Midvale, thank you. Mzwandile in the Eastern Cape, water infrastructure. We were talking about that earlier, Mzwandile. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Stephen. You see, this GNU debate has actually derailed us as the population of actually discussing and debating real issues of how to make government more efficient and what we want to see from the new administration. If I refer back to what your professor said, I'm fully behind the one who talked about water, and let me tell you why. One of the things that I think should actually be done by this new administration is to find ways to merge Department of Water and Sanitation with agriculture. Because at the moment, the largest users of water is the agricultural sector. The largest investor currently in agricultural bulk infrastructure is actually not the Department of Agriculture. It has actually been Water Affairs, which therefore means if you were to integrate those two, even if it's just the agricultural component, you will have a situation where there are agricultural projects, one, similar planning, combination of budgets, and also where there's a shortfall, the private sector, in partnership with those departments, can raise those on the open capital markets. That is what we want to see. Lastly, in the Eastern Cape, for instance, the Department of Water and Sanitation, the investment is probably 100 to 1 when you compare that to the Department of Agriculture. So I'm saying for better service. And also lastly, Stephen, at the moment, one of the sectors that would have a huge impact in uplifting black people and integrating them in the mainstream economy is agriculture. Therefore, meaning that is where the concentration must be. And those two, water and agriculture, are the ones we feel if you were to match them, you'll have better integrated planning and be able to make government in that sector far more efficient.
All right, Noam Sandile, that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't aware of the sort of way you put it in terms of investment, but there's certainly a lot that needs to be done there. So thank you for that. Sandile and Kimberly, you want to talk about the Springboks? You mean the rugby team, not the place?
Yes, Stephen Grootes. Good morning.
Morning, Sandile. Go for it.
29 years ago, yesterday, on the 24th of June, the Springboks won the Rugby World Cup.
Yes.
Now, your colleague, Mr. Jimmy Moyaha, articulated it very beautiful yesterday. It was the start of a revolution.
Yeah.
4-time Rugby World Cup champion. Now, Stephen, this team, they are doing it for South Africa. They put South Africa first. Now, this is a perfect, when you personify government of national unity. Let me put it this way. These players, they come from different unions, rugby unions in South Africa. But when they put on their jersey, they're doing it for their families, for the country first. Very important, Stephen. Now, all these political parties, they come from different manifestos and whatever.
Yeah.
But this government of national unity, they must put us first. Let the Springboks be an example of what it means when you say you put your country first. This team comes from a terrible past.
Yeah.
But if you turn the tide, like Jimmy Moyaha said, the revolution started 1995. This is a revolution. The tide will turn, Stephen. But if they realize they must put us first, let the Springboks be an example.
Sandile, do you think Cyril Ramaphosa needs to talk to the team like Rassie Erasmus does?
Dr. Erasmus, you know what, Stephen? Sia already asked the president. Asked the president.
Yeah.
Please, Mr. President. You know, Stephen. So, don't even all of them. It's a huge challenge.
No, sure.
Like the Springboks, like it was the past of the Springboks, that racist part. It was a huge challenge to change that image, to change that brand.
Yeah.
But they did it. They put South Africa first. Thank you, Dr. Rassie.
All right, Sandile, Dr. Rassie, it's the honorary doctorate. Sandile and Kimberly, thank you very much indeed for that. Gary, Gary, I think you're still there. Gary Netaquini, hi. John Klorpe, go for it.
Hi. Sorry, I'd just like to know I'm not very political, but from the perspective of the law, how can a man be impeached as a judge and then come on as a member of parliament? Is that right?
My understanding, I mean, we went through all of this with whether Jacob Zuma could go to Parliament again or not. Deliberately, it's made easy to go to Parliament. The idea is, as I understand it, if you can vote, you should be able to participate in political activity, which includes going to Parliament, except for those three things: if you've been declared insolvent, an unsound mind, and convicted in the last 5 years. So, Gary, there's no legal reason to stop John Klorpe from becoming an MP.
Sure, it's interesting. But thank you for that.
No, sure. Gary on the line from Durban. It is very interesting. 17 minutes to 8.
Which is the best way to reach success? Is it best to go alone so you can go fast? Or for many to go together so they can go far? What if you need to go fast and far? At RMB, we believe the best way to success doesn't make you choose when both are possible. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Durban is open for business and investment. A large delegation from the United States of America, including captains of industry, business, investors, finances, decision makers, and high-profile leaders will attend the 2024 Resurgence Durban Conference to explore and maximize investment opportunities in Durban. Be part of the Resurgence Durban Conference taking place at the Durban ICC from the 17th to the 21st of July 2024. Durban is forging ahead with its plan of action that is aimed at boosting trade and investments within South Africa, the African continent, and the rest of the world. Businesses must register now to exhibit at the conference. Closing date is the 30th of June 2024. To register for the Resurgence Durban Conference and for more information, visit www.resurgenceconference.org.
SAFM Youth Month Takeover. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what the 2 compelling issues facing our 30 years of democracy are, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
Not every grand idea turns out the way it was envisioned. You know what I'm talking about. That attempted upside-down kiss inspired by that superhero in the pouring rain that resulted in pneumonia and broken bones. That Tokyo drifting that ended up in an embarrassing explanation to your insurance. That online order going through your partner's phone. Hi, cut. Join Richard Hammond as he takes you on a journey of clips from the main show that highlights some of their boldest stunt attempts, a number of which didn't go as planned. Tune into Top Gear, Ambitious and Rubbish, Fridays at 9 p.m. to channel your inner vroom with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
14 minutes to 7. Good morning. Well, you've heard from several parties who are joining the coalition government over the last few days. Several other parties are refusing to join. One of them is the African Transformation Movement. Voya Zungula is the leader of the ATM. Voya, good morning.
Morning, Stephen. Morning to everyone listening.
We've seen some people who seem to be part of the Progressive Caucus now moving to join the coalition. You're staying outside. Why do you believe that's the right choice?
It is a principled decision to fulfill what our constitution demands, which is the multi-party democracy, which is largely founded or anchored on having opposition parties to enable the checks and balances so that whoever that is the part of the ruling coalition, there is a form of oversight that is played by the opposition. If all 18 parties form part of the ruling coalition, then it means our democracy will be weakened because there's going to be no party that will play the role of oversight over the executive as an opposition party.
What do you believe you'll be able to do in opposition? I mean, fully accept the principle that you state. You are, I'm afraid, we're still quite a small party. Are you going to be able to cooperate with other parties to have an impact, maybe?
As ATM in the past term, with only 2 seats, we had so much impact. The Pala scandal would not have gone to where it was if it was not for ATM. The unearthing of the landing of the UAE president's plane in Bulembu Airport, it is ATM who challenged all of that. So ATM with only 2 seats has been impactful. However, with the collaboration with the Progressive Caucus, we are going to retain our independence as the different parties, but at the same time collaborate on issues of mutual concern in order to play an effective oversight role, because That's how Parliament in the past has been able to be a success, especially from opposition parties, is that collaboration.
Well, it's interesting because the Progressive Caucus was created really in quite a hurry. It was the sort of moment as it became clear that the DA and the ANC were going to work together. Do you think it still has a future? I mean, it also would require the EFF and MK to work together. That will be interesting to watch from the inside, I'm sure.
The Progressive Caucus has got a bright future because as it stands now, it is providing a solid block of parties to play an effective oversight role over the executive and push that we do not regress as a country towards when it comes to the policies that have been implemented that are pro-transformation. So that is what we're going to be doing for the next 5 years.
I wonder, Voyo, if progressive is really the right word, and maybe there might be a moment for a different term. As I say, these things were happening very quickly 2 weeks ago. I mean, MK is the biggest party, and I don't know if its policies would really be described as progressive. I mean, maybe transformation might be a better word or something like that. But progressive, when it wants a greater role for traditional leaders, I don't think that necessarily fits the definition of progressive. I mean, have you given any thought to that?
The caucus comprises of different political parties who are going to sit down when the time is right and discuss amongst each other on what are the policies that we are going to push, that we all agree on. But also on the example that you've made, it is very progressive that we include the role of traditional leaders in our country, in our democracy, in our governance, because even before the colonizers came, the method of governance of our people was via the traditional leaders. So we can't be having a country whereby in our state we do not have a proper recognition or full an increased role when it comes to the traditional leaders. Whereas if you go to the likes of the UK, the British monarch there is having quite a significant role when it comes to the governance of that particular country. However, in South Africa, it is going to be termed as regressive.
I don't know about that. I mean, in the British case, the head of the government is a hereditary monarch, of course, but plays absolutely no role at all. Reads a speech once a year that is given to them by the government, and they have to read it. In some cases, we've actually seen them talking about things that are against them because they have to read the speech. We can have a discussion around whether there should be a greater role for traditional leaders in making laws. I mean, it involves people who are then involved in Parliament making laws only because they were born into a particular position. So that may be something many people want, and the election results may show that. My question's around the phrase progressive. It may be transformative. It may be, there may be better words, but progressive normally means trying to level our society. I don't know, to equalize our society. I don't know if a greater role for traditional leaders would be that.
Progressive in this context means pushing the country towards progressive policies that are pro-transformation, policies that are going to change the outlook of the economy, that are going to yield good results when it comes to increased participation of South Africans in the functioning of our democracy. So progressive, it is the correct word that is used for that caucus, because it is a caucus that is there not to oppose as an opposition bloc for the sake of opposing, but it is progressive also in the context that when the ruling coalition is doing something that is progressive for the country, we are obviously going to agree with them. However, if they are regressive, they are not moving us as a country towards the right direction, we are going to oppose them. That is why progressive is the correct term.
Voyo Zungula, thank you. We'll have to leave it there. Leader of the African Transformation Movement.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy into Joburg's Crown interchange, and beyond this morning, a crash up by Smith Street a little bit earlier has backed everything up. The Mike 1 heavy from Boyson's, the M2 from Joe Slovo trying to get into that Mike 1 North. Traffic very heavy through towards the Crown. Quite big traffic in from Bryanston and Randburg sides this morning off to work in Sandton. There's a really big backlog of traffic on Winnie Mandela from sort of Peter Place all the way down into Parkmore along Sandton Drive, and behind that Republic Road as you arrive in from the Randburg side heading out towards Winnie Mandela. Quite slow as well. Olifantsfontein leaving the Blue Hills area, moving through Midrand towards the N1. There's a big backlog. And the N1 fairly slow today. Old Joburg Road down to about sort of Olifantsfontein Road, I guess, before you feel like you're out of the traffic. Durban, another crash scene, the second one this morning on the Southern Freeway inbound. This one happening at Congella, so it's quite a big delay. We had one up by Victoria Embankment that cleared, and then another one in that Umbulo and Congella area. So very heavy traffic queuing from Clarewood, Rochborough side this morning on the Southern Freeway into Durban. And Cape Town, the earlier crash on the N1 into town at the N7, Jakes Kerville Drive, Goodwood exit has been cleared, but it's backed everything up. The N1 very heavy from Belleville this morning down to the Kuberg interchange, and then a bit of traffic just building up over the elevated freeways. You approach the CBD. Also, a collision on the N2 driving into Cape Town from the airport. That crash between Robert Sobukwe and the N7 Jakes Kerville Drive, and that's pushed a delay back towards the airport exit. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Youth Month Takeover. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what the two compelling issues facing our 30 years of democracy are, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, the Health Department confirming more confirmed cases by laboratories of Mpox. 2 people have now passed away. The total number of infections since the outbreak began in South Africa is now 13. Foster Mohale is the spokesperson for the National Health Department. Foster, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners, and thanks for the opportunity.
What steps are you now taking against this disease?
Look, we are doing everything possible, working with a number of stakeholders in order to curb the spread of this disease. That's why last week we've confirmed that we've received the first batch of Mpox-specific treatment. This is the treatment for severe health cases, but for normal or mild cases, we're using treatment for other conditions like your chickenpox or smallpox.
This disease is really only spread through very close physical contact. So, I mean, it's completely different to COVID, right? We don't need those measures at all. It's really about close physical contact.
No, definitely. This one is mainly through close physical contact, but also prolonged physical contact, hence, or contaminated surfaces or objects. So, hence, we encourage people, anyone who has been in close contact with a friend, family member, or colleague who tested positive, we say please also try to present yourself at the nearest health facility. Also, just to know your status, how you're doing, because the incubation period, meaning that the day you contract this disease and the day you start experiencing the symptoms, it may take a week, meaning that if your close contact, your colleague tested positive and you're together, don't assume that the fact that you don't display or experience symptoms immediately, you are negative.
There is a treatment for it for very severe cases. It's difficult to get, not registered by the Health Products Regulatory, by SAPRA. So that process is happening. You've been given permission, a sort of emergency permission to use it. Do you think you're going to need many supplies of this? I mean, are you expecting to have to deal with many severe cases?
Look, based on the rate of transmission in the country and the number of severe cases that we are detecting on a weekly basis, I think it's only 1% of the cases that we detect on a weekly basis that require that Mpox-specific treatment. Hence, I indicated that we continue to use other treatment. But therefore, want to assure all South Africans that even if the number of cases will happen to rise to double, we are expecting more of this treatment in the next few days. So in terms of treatment, we are ready. So we just encourage people to try to maintain personal hygiene to prevent, because prevention is better than cure.
You don't have a health minister at the moment, Foster. Are you able to manage without one?
No, yeah. Remember, the health minister is giving the political guidelines, but in terms of management, yes, we have got the experts, we've got the DG, we work closely with the NICD, the World Health Organization. That's how we managed to secure the first batch of treatment. It was through the efforts by the World Health Organization local office.
Thank you very much indeed, Foster Mohale, spokesperson for the National Health Department. Do appreciate the time.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Ninja on the line from eThekwini. Durban. Ninja, hi. You want to talk about terms for the new government? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Stephen. Before I go on to that, I want to correct you. The head of the Royals in the UK is the head of the government, and the Prime Minister has a weekly meeting, in this case the King,
sure.
King Charles. And King Charles signs certain documents like charters. Yeah?
Yeah, but can't actually change the position on anything.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, what MK is calling for is another House of Parliament that would have traditional leaders basically making laws. I mean, it's a huge difference.
Yeah, but I don't see that's going to work in the modern era. Terms of reference. The right term for this new government is should be called cross-party coalition. Mm. And they should have an advisory board of professional people to advise them on their policies. And the other point I'd like to make is about the TRC in 1994 pardoned the Afrikaner hierarchy, who took the land away from people. They are the culprits, not the people that are owning the land, because they paid for it. And it's a salient point to consider, because I think it's unconstitutional to just snatch the land. That would be illegal. It's an emotional issue. What are you going to do by taking the land? Now, what's happening?
Sure.
The people that have got the land now, the syndicates are building shacks.
Yeah.
And I met a young lad from Umlazi, and he was saying they're doing that there. The syndicates are just building shacks all over the place and making money out of it.
All right, Ninja, I think we've heard you on that. Sorry, just to change the subject there, it seems. All right, more to come. We'll talk about stock theft in the next little while. You with SFM leading the conversation. It's 8 o'clock. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43517 now.
Top stories at 8. MK party members to be sworn in, and a woman sentenced to 3 life terms for murder. Good morning, I'm Eva Chipa. 58 members of the MK party, led by Dr. John Hlophe, will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. They had informed Parliament they would not be able or available to be sworn in with other elected members just over a week ago. At the time, the party had indicated that it is challenging the outcomes of the May 29th election. Zelene Merrington reports.
The MK party missed the group swearing-in ceremony that Parliament had on the 14th and 15th of this month. In order to serve as members of Parliament, they must swear or affirm faithfulness to the Republic and obedience to the Constitution. In the run-up to the elections, one of the party's leaders and founders, President Jacob Zuma, had indicated that they would change the Constitution if elected into power. The party has in the meantime indicated that the impeached former judge, John Hlophe, will be its leader in Parliament. Zelene Merrington, SABC News, Parliament.
The African Restoration Alliance says it will persist with their court bid over the national election outcomes. Party leader Dr. Jerome Swartz says the elections were not free and fair and alleges irregular actions by the Electoral Commission. The party wants a re-election and the disbanding of the IEC. Dr. Swartz says there is interference and no true independence.
The IEC did not deal with any objections. There's no proof of any objections that we dealt with. Actual fact, parties collaborated together, 26 parties, and the court and the case was chucked out. On a mere base, they said they did not deal with it at the appropriate time. or they did not fill in the appropriate application forms, which was totally irrelevant. You are dealing with the next 5 years of people, the 5 years of governance.
The High Court in Pretoria has sentenced Pamela Selani to 3 life terms for murder. The 47-year-old woman was found guilty for the murder of her 2 boyfriends, Michael Changisa and a man known only as Gift from Malawi, as well as her son. She was arrested in 2020 after her younger child disclosed how the 3 had died. NPA spokesperson Lumka Bahajan.
The NPA welcomed the sentence and wants to send a message that it can never be overemphasized how important life is. Therefore, the NPA will be vigorous in our pursuit of these cases to serve as a deterrent to would-be murderers.
Law enforcement officers in Cape Town have apprehended 3 suspects on various charges in separate incidents. MMC for Safety and Security, JP Smith, says officers acted on information about footage of a suspect waving a firearm in Grassy Park. A 23-year-old man was arrested and charged with possession of an unlicensed firearm. In another incident, officers arrested a suspect and seized 15 rounds of ammunition and a firearm. Smith says the 32-year-old suspect was also arrested for trespassing when he got caught at the Athlone police station, in which it is suspected that the building was a target for an intended crime. In other news, the new Eastern Cape Health MEC, Ntandokazi Qapa, says budget constraints in her department are a cause of staff shortages at the Maclear Hospital. The hospital came under the spotlight following complaints of poor service and a lack of medication. The MEC visited the hospital and promised to attend to some of the complaints.
So I saw it on the news yesterday, and I felt it was important for me to come and get all the necessary information, what really transpired, what is it that we can do to turn the situation around. As you know, that there are serious budget constraints in the department. Hence, it is very difficult for us to employ. But I don't want to speak things from the hearsay point of view, but I must meet with the department, get the insight of what is happening, then I can give you a clear answer in relation to that.
And lastly, looking further afield, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has told the Israeli Defense Minister, who is in Washington, that the United States wants to avoid any escalation in the Gaza conflict into Lebanon. There have been frequent clashes between Israeli forces and Hezbollah militants along the Israeli-Lebanese border in recent days. The BBC's Peter Bose reports.
Tensions have been rising with an increasing number of skirmishes between Israel and Lebanon's Iranian-backed group Hezbollah, which supports Hamas in Gaza. With fears those hostilities could intensify, Antony Blinken urged Mr. Gallant to work towards de-escalation. According to a State Department spokesman, the talks also focused on indirect diplomacy between Israel and Hamas on an agreement that secures the release of all hostages and alleviates the suffering of the Palestinian people.
Recapping the top story for this hour, 58 members of the MK party led by Dr. John Hlophe will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour for SFM News. I'm Eva Chipa.
Eva, thank you. And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS CAR to 43517. Did you know that with Outsurance Essential, valid claims are paid out in cash? Let me say that again. Outsurance Essential pays your car insurance claim in cash. That's cash paid into your bank account that you can use to repair your car at any panel beater of your choice. Outsurance Essential for cars older than 5 years, not financed and valued under 125,000 Rand. SMS CAR to 43187 for a quote. That's CAR to 43187. SMS now. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. It's cricket. The unbeaten Proteas, they'll face Afghanistan in the T20 World Cup semi-final Thursday morning, early at around 2 a.m. And we have rugby. The Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus to announce a streamlined squad today for the incoming series with Ireland. We'll bring you details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Pretty heavily backed up traffic through Midrand this morning between Old Joburg Road and New Road all the way through. They're pretty heavy for this time of year, considering it's school holidays. If you're on your way out of Pretoria to Joburg, make sure you got plenty of time to get through. Also, the exits from Midrand, Olifantsfontein and New Road down towards the M1 highway are both very heavy as well. Crash scene on the N3 near Linksfield Road. Delays getting up through Galulis in towards the Edenvale area. Update on Durban's M4 Southern Freeway. This is a fatal collision now at Kongela. It will be there. It will have an impact for some time. One lane is open on the M4, Southern Freeway going up into Durban, and the backlog is all the way through to Clarewood. So back through Rossborough, back to Clarewood. The alternative South Coast Road is pretty heavy as well. You could take the N2 and then off-ramp N3. That's okay this morning as an alternative route into Durban. The roadworks queue towards Westwood Mall is not that extreme. So you can get up the N2 through sort of Booth Road Bridge and then into Spaghetti Junction. Cape Town, plenty of traffic on the N1 after an earlier crash at Monte Vista. It's all being cleared up, but just Belleville through the city centre stays busy. Crashed on the N2 inbound at the N7 Jakes Scoville Drive, slowing traffic from the airport. And if you're driving Rocklands Road in the Quebec area just south of Uitenhage, protesters blocking off that road again. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
9 after 8, good morning, you're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. All right, lots more to come, still waiting, of course, the new government. We will talk about stock theft in KwaZulu-Natal, a claim that animals are being stolen and end up in Shisanyamas. We'll hear from one of the farmers involved in that. Also, talk in a little while about homelessness, with particular regard to the city of Cape Town. Looking forward to that. You're with SAFM 9 after 8.
The world's best cooking show is coming to S3. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, Noma Upumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Starts Saturday 13 July at 7:30 p.m. on S3, Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
Bafana are in a winning mood and plan to put up a real fight to triumph in their opening clash of Group A. However, the Mambas want to ensure that their neighborly relationship with Africa Tonga is non-existent for 90 minutes. This is the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2024. Experience the joy of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mozambique on Wednesday, 26 June at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
10 after 8, good morning. Well, suggestions now that there's been a big increase in livestock theft, particularly theft of cattle and sheep in KwaZulu-Natal, and claims from the African Farmers Association of South Africa that, in fact, this is related to Shisanyamas in the area. In other words, the animals are being stolen and then being slaughtered, and the meat is being sold to Shisanyamas. Donatusi Dlamini is the Secretary General for the KwaZulu-Natal African Farmers Association of South Africa. Donatusi, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How big a problem is livestock theft? Has there been a big increase in your area?
Yeah. Let me say thank you to SAFM for interviewing us. Because I think it's not going to be just the interview, but it's going to come with the interest at the end of the day. Because here in KZN, we are in trouble for the stock theft of livestock, sheep, even goats, even very high, even for the goats. But especially for the cattle stock theft, you know, those the committee is a syndicate. Because the major cause of this stock theft is the Shisanyama that is all over in KZN. And the thing of stock theft is even destroying the economy of discount.
Sure. So how do you know? I mean, do you know who's behind this? Where they take the animals? How this business, this theft, this crime is working?
Yeah, especially here in South Africa, the law it doesn't take its direction. Because what is the big cause of this is the people that, especially those people that coming from outside the country, the foreigners. Because if you go all the Shisanyama is for those people who are the foreigners, and you are begging the police to take serious of those Shisanyama. Because it used to be operational of everything, but we never saw operational of the stock theft going door to door of those Shisanyama. To check who's running the Shisanyama. Does that Shisanyama, where does they get the meat? You see, because they're not buying from the butcheries those meat. They're stealing our cattle. And the other thing that makes us as the farmers to cry here in KZN is because even the law doesn't take serious the thing of stock theft. You see, because they're supposed to take it serious because it's very bad.
And Don Tusi, I mean, do you try and investigate yourself? I mean, if someone's cows are stolen, do they go and look for them? I mean, you know, I presume, I mean, this is a huge problem. Do they try and, I mean, do they know exactly how it ends up in the Shisanyama? Do you find maybe where the animal's been slaughtered, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we did. You know, they're killing in the mountain. If you find the nyama from the Shisanyama, you find the meat is full of grass. You see, it's not the proper meat. They're killing from the mountain, and they came here, they load, especially they use it. You know, like, I'm going to make an example. I'm here in Etimpel. So most of them is going to Durban, in Pietermaritzburg. You find the quantum. They loading on the Chota quantum. All the meat. Then they travel from here where I'm staying, Etimpel, to Durban, from Bulwa to Durban, from Sweet Daughters, all over. They're using the Chota quantum to transport those meat. And when you go there, you find the meat. You can see the difference of the meat that come from the butchery, and this one so is not the proper meat that came from the butchery. They kill it maybe from the mountain because it's full of grass. The meat. It happened many times, but when you try to deal with that, they say you can't take the law on your own hands. So that is why we are begging the government to come and help us as the farmers. You see, and even here in KZN, we're having a problem with the previous government because we are trying many times to try to talk with the previous government, but they didn't take care of us. Now we are begging the new government to please take care of the farmers because they're struggling with farming here in KZN because it seems there is no one who bother themselves with the farmers in KZN.
And Donald Tusi, the police, do they do nothing? Is there a stock theft unit in KZN?
Can you beg your pardon?
Is there a specialist police unit in KwaZulu-Natal that deals with this, a stock theft unit?
They're not taking this thing serious. It's bad. If you can come, it's bad. Like, you know, yesterday there was a farmer who was crying. They stole maybe more than 45 goats yesterday only.
Sure.
Yes, we don't know how many days we don't know. Each and every day, farmers lose their livestock. And if you can see, there's no job here. So it's the farmers, it's the farming that we rely on it, especially here in KZN. And here in KZN, if you can calculate the land, here in KZN and Eastern Cape, we have 70% of the agricultural land is here in KZN. But it seems as if the government doesn't take care of the farmers here in KZN.
Yeah. Donald Tusi, thank you very much indeed. Such a serious situation developing there. Donald Tusi Dlamini is the Secretary General of the KwaZulu-Natal African Farmers Association of South Africa. Have you been to Shisanyama in KZN and wondered where the meat comes from? I mean, have you sort of wondered that maybe you've got an experience to tell us on 086 000 2032?
Am I left or right-brained? I'm leaning right. However, I do have some left-brain tendencies. Perhaps I'm left-brained with right-brain tendencies. Am I overthinking this? I don't want to be caught underthinking it. Or maybe I'm overthinking about underthinking the overthinking. Which am I?
At RMB, the simple answer is both. When you need a thoughtful solution for financial complexity that doesn't make you choose, there are only 3 letters you need to know. RMB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
Are you ready to take your brand to a whole new level? Have you ever thought about how big companies use strong PR to get more people to know about their brands? The Allure Group presents the inaugural Building a Brand Through PR Masterclass. Join us on Wednesday, July 3rd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the DP World Wonders Stadium in Johannesburg. Learn from 12 industry experts as they share their case studies and personal testimonies that will transform your approach to brand building. Visit www.prmasterclass.co.za to get your tickets. Only 650 rands for an in-person experience, or join us virtually for just 350 rands. Don't miss this chance to master the art of PR and take your brand to the next level. Building a brand through PR Masterclass, powered by Independent Media.
Say ROBOT_BO robot the Cash Moon SABC1 6 p.m. on Saturdays. Deal or no deal, celebrity game. Let's get it.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
All right, Simon on the line from KwaZulu-Natal. Simon, hi. You have a farm in Danhauser. This issue of stock theft, how bad is it?
Thank you, Stephen. Let me just say, I've listened to the gentleman that you've interviewed. Yeah. I think if we're going to go and the Shisanyamas at the end of the process, you see, the main problem, stealing of cattle and sheep and everything, it needs to be treated as a serious crime, not as a petty crime. That's where the problem starts. You see, because people, I can tell you, across the province of KwaZulu-Natal, I know in Cape it's the same thing, and also in Free State and other provinces we've seen. This is not a petty crime because people's lives are in danger in the process. You see, that's the first process. That's the first step. Then another one is that people know from even where we're sitting, we know some of the culprits. You see. But the problem is that you can't come out because this syndicate, it's also in the police stations. This syndicate is also in the people that you're telling us that it's a unit that deals with the stock theft, you see. And people's lives are in danger. We're losing a farm in Danhauser, but I can tell you, if you lose in one day about 7 to 8, 9 cows, that's close to 100,000.
Yeah, that's a ton of money.
Yes. And if we treat that as separate, maybe as different from stealing of cars, you see, then our approach is completely wrong in the whole process. That's what I wanted just to put across.
Simon, in case I didn't hear you, it's a huge, it has huge ramifications. This is on the line from Danhauser there. And yeah, this is a major issue, actually something we need to look at again. Maybe we need to look at a mediated conversation on the issue of stock theft once again. 21 after 8.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
Well, we've seen over the years that more and more people appear to be sort of stuck in this trap of trying to get what they call the perfect body. In some cases, people are abusing weight loss drugs. In other cases, people just sort of, are miserable literally all the time because this is something they really cannot have. Dr. Felicity Marcus is a member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists. Dr. Marcus, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on air this morning.
This can really have a big impact on someone. They can look at other people. They really don't look at real people. They look at images of people. So you're looking at Instagram, TV, movies, whatever it is. And people can actually feel miserable all the time. It can ruin your life, this kind of thing. How can you protect a person from this kind of pressure, this unreasonable, unnecessary, very unhappy pressure?
Well, exactly like you said, we live in a world where I think the idealized body is it's everywhere. It's on social media, it's on in the magazines, on the big screens, and it's very difficult. And I think, especially with our adolescent population who are so vulnerable and really take on these images, it is quite difficult. And what we are seeing with the, obviously with the social media exposure is that people are chasing this perfect body, this idealized body, and it's very hard to protect them, you know. And I think the best way we can is through education, and realizing that everybody is a perfect body, you know. It doesn't have to fit a certain image or look a certain way, and that's the message we need to be portraying, because at the moment we are in a mental health crisis, especially with a lot of the abuse of weight loss medication that is happening.
It seems that obviously the more media we have, the more visual our society becomes. So it would have started really with, paintings, and then I suppose black and white movies, and then, color movies and television, and now social media and Instagram. But the more visual our society becomes, the higher the proportion of people who are unhappy with their bodies. And there's something fundamentally wrong with it. I mean, there's something that I think as humanity, as society, we've broken here. I don't know how we can stop this, this process. But what it looks like to me is that it's just going to get worse and worse. The pressure gets greater and greater.
Yes, I'm sorry to say, I think you're right about it getting worse. I think a lot of people want, they want that idealized body, but they also want to, we live in a generation now where everything must be on demand, there's no patience, there's no working towards something. They want a quick fix. So I want that perfect body and I want it now. And that, I think, is also a huge, huge problem that we're dealing with as a society. And I'm not, like you're saying, I'm not really sure if it's going to get better unless we put measures in to control it. I also think that obviously the social media, and they need to put in kind of measures and boundaries, and especially in terms of what people are able to access. You type in a keyword like weight loss, and you end up with influencers. They're actually called finfluencers, and they show you how to lose weight. They show you how to, cut back on your food and what kind of techniques you can use to kind of get that body. So it is a real problem at the moment, and I'm not sure how we will put the brakes on it.
And it's all lies. I mean, it's all nonsense. It's all lies. I mean, isn't this the thing you need to say?
Yes.
Yes, you need to say to young people, you are being lied to,
Yes,
very important.
Exactly. And it's also about, creating a sense of self-esteem in our youth, because they think, like you're saying, that this is what I need to be accepted, to be seen as beautiful, or to be seen as worthy. And it's lies. It's actually the complete opposite, and those are the messages we need to be sending out and putting on social media, but we're not.
This has always been, and particularly we saw it with girls. Now I wonder if we're seeing it a lot more with boys over the last 20 years, that kind of pressure building on them as well. So it's becoming all young people, really. It
is. I mean, I think there was always this impression, like you're saying, about the young, adolescent female, usually a high achiever, and that was kind of the person that would, develop maybe an eating disorder or have eating struggles. But now it's really across the board, and we are seeing more and more young boys also developing eating disorders, but also quite interestingly enough, something called orthorexia, which is an obsession with health, with clean eating, with fitness, with weight training. So that's also coming through more and more, and that's, again, I think from, this, like we're saying, these portrayal of the perfect body that we are constantly seeing on our social media platforms.
And does it help very quickly, if you can, Dr. Marcus, to basically be doing other things a little bit? Some exercise every day makes you feel better about your body. Using your brain at work makes you feel better about yourself. You've got to make sure that society's not you're not feeling judged just on how you look. You're being judged on many other things, and we are as humans judged on many, many things. How we look is hardly any of it.
Yeah, no, for absolute sure. I think, it's not to say that there's anything wrong, with people taking pride in their appearance, or, like you say, like exercising or eating healthily, but it's when it becomes extreme. It's when it becomes an excessive, kind of behavior that's really impacting on a person's function, then we need to worry. But there isn't anything wrong, with wanting to be healthy, with wanting to look good. And I think that's also, there's a very fine line that we need to think about with that as well.
Dr. Felicity Marcus, thank you, member of the South African Society of Psychiatrists, 28 after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. The Proteas 2:30 on Thursday morning.
Yes, we'll be watching. It's going to be a thrilling match. Ready to take on Afghanistan. The Proteas are aiming for a spot in the finals. Now, Afghanistan secured their spot by defeating Bangladesh by 8 runs via the Duckworth-Lewis method. The Proteas reached the semi-finals by beating the West Indies by 3 wickets, thanks to Tabreh Shamsi's 3 wickets for 27 runs. The match will be held at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. While Afghanistan has impressed, the Proteas are favoured to advance to the final alongside India. Rugby now. The Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus is set to announce a streamlined first-choice squad for the incoming series against Ireland at midday today. After kicking off the season with a win over Wales, the Boks arrived in Johannesburg early this morning. The squad will feature overseas-based stars unavailable for the Wales test, and some newcomers may be released. Bulls players previously ruled out due to the URC final will also be considered. Erasmus's team will assess all injuries before finalising the squad. Notably, the Bulls' number 8, Cameron Hanekom, is likely out, and that's due to a hamstring injury. Following the 2 tests against Ireland, the Boks will play a historic match against Portugal before the Rugby Championship commences. Now, New Zealand coach Scott Robinson has named Scott Barrett as captain for the upcoming tests against England and Fiji in July. Barrett will be supported by his brother Geordie and the reigning world player of the year, Ardie Savea, as vice-captains. Here's a thrilled Scott Barrett.
Yeah, I'm hugely honoured and grateful for the opportunity to captain the All Blacks, and excited about what's ahead, and understand it's a huge job, and understand there's a lot of pressure that goes with it, but excited to see where this team's going.
And some soccer news. Bafana and Mamelodi Sundowns player Audrey Modiba has explained the idea behind his tricky moves when he's behind the ball, especially in the recent World Cup qualifier against Zimbabwe. Playing in front of a sold-out crowd at the Free State Stadium, Modiba says he was not just enjoying himself, but his moves were highly influential in opening spaces for his teammates.
Obviously, because when I do that, most players they shift, and obviously I can see players who are free because I know where to find Mshishi, I know where to find Tibbs, I know where to find Yaya or whoever in the team at Sundowns. It's something that I enjoy doing, and against Zimbabwe, some players were like, we know you're gonna do that, but either way, I did it because you never really expect it, and it helps you to see players who are free, and so that we can go forward.
And Bafana won that match against Zimbabwe 3-1. That's a wrap now. We'll have more sport on SAFM around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Helping the homeless, that's next. You're with SAFM, leading the conversation, 8:30.
In news making headlines for this hour, former ANC MP Annelies van Wyk has accused the DA of attempting to establish a parallel cabinet within the Government of National Unity. This comes as political parties that constitute the GNU are engaged in negotiations to form a cabinet. In other news, 58 members of the MK party led by Dr. John Hlophe will be sworn in as members of the National Assembly this morning. And lastly, a fire which broke out at George Mukhari Academic Hospital in Garangua, north of Pretoria, has claimed the life of a 35-year-old female patient last night. It is reported the patient was admitted to the psychiatric unit last week. I'll be back with news at 9 for SFM News. I'm Eva Chipa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Mike 13 Joburg is busy this morning. An earlier crash up by Smith Street. It's been cleared for a while now, but it just means sort of Gold Reef City right through to Empire. Still a lot of traffic. The M2 through from Joe Slovo in towards the Mike 1 stays busy as well. Further up the highway as you go towards Sandton, that collision on the M1 just before Greyston Drive is pushing traffic back through to Glenhove. So the run through Melrose into Sandton very heavy. A collision on the N3 North at Linksfield means a backlog getting through Galulis. N3 North and the N12 and R24 route flyover at Galuli's into the N3 is pretty heavily backed as well. Now, the N1 South stays really busy today between Old Joburg Road and probably about New Road before you're out of that. Olifantsfontein Road and New Road coming across from Midrand on towards the highway, both busy as well. Here's a bit of advice. If you're driving into Durban from the south, the M4 has a fatal collision at Congella, so it's a really heavy delay from Jacobs Clarewood as you line up towards Durban and squeeze into a single lane past that. It probably will be a problem for some time in terms of traffic because of the nature of the crash. So the good news is the N2 moving up to Spaghetti Junction, then the N3 inbound, that is clear of any roadwork delays. The delays on the N2 are just north of 4 level, so you can just bypass that M4 and the South Coast Road congestion locally and just take the N2 through 4 level and straight into Durban on the Western Freeway. Looks good, that option. Cape Town today, crash on the N2, driving into town before the N7 Jakes Kerwell Drive exit. That's pushed delay back towards the sort of airport industry area, and plenty of traffic on the N1 from sort of N1 City Paro area all the way through to city centre. Pretty busy all the way through. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Youth Month Takeover. SAFM invites young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take over the airwaves this Youth Month. All you have to do is send a WhatsApp voice note or text message to 061 410 4107 or email info@safm.co.za. Tell us which show you'd like to co-host and what the 2 compelling issues facing our 30 years of democracy are, and we could be calling you. Terms and conditions apply.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
26 minutes now to 9. The time for your mediated conversation this morning. Last week, the City of Cape Town won what is likely to be the final court case that allows them to move 200 people who have been living on pavements in the city centre. During the pandemic, hundreds of people formed tent cities on pavements, in some cases on tennis courts in the Cape Town CBD. These people have then been living there, leading to huge arguments about what should happen to them. Several groups have defended their right to live there, saying they have nowhere else to go. The city says public spaces are designed to be used by everybody, and no one can monopolise those spaces or use them all the time. So then, for a situation like this, what is the best thing to do, and how should people in this situation be helped? First this morning, you'll hear from the Mayor of the City of Cape Town, Jordan Hill-Lewis, a conversation we had with him late last week. Then, from an organisation which appears to oppose the evictions, Ndodana Khadebe is from the Homeless Action Coalition, is the chairperson of the Homeless Action Coalition. We'll then find out a bit more about helping people who are living on the streets. Delahapla Roo is part of the Homeless Network, and Elshia Ricks is someone who was previously homeless. We start then with our conversation with the Mayor of the City of Cape Town last week. I asked Jordan Hill-Lewis why they wanted to evict these people.
Well, a lot of these homeless tented encampments were established, so to speak, during the COVID years, during the lockdown, and even before that, actually. And the issue has become much more acute in Cape Town over the last few years, with many, many hundreds of people living homeless in tented encampments around the CBD. And it is not conducive to a thriving CBD. It comes with a lot of drug problems, alcohol problems, a lot of petty theft. It is not clean. It is not dignified for the people living there in those tents. And so we have tried over a long time to offer a full suite of care packages and interventions to those people. We have spent a lot of money building very dignified alternative accommodation, but we always understood that if many of them, and we knew that many of them would not accept that help voluntarily because of the state of mind and state of life that they are in, that we would have to rely on the courts for help. And we have now done so. It's been a long process, but we are offering a very, very caring and dignified alternative to every person who is on the streets.
Okay, are you providing them an alternative place to live? What kind of place are you offering?
Yes, we have built what we call the city's safe spaces. And in the last 2 years, we've added more than 1,000 of them, 1,000 beds rather. And our largest and biggest one is about to finish in about a week's time. And so they are kind of dormitory style accommodation with bunk beds. They provide two hot meals a day. They provide a social worker on site to offer care every single day. They offer a nursing sister once a week, referrals for addiction treatment and alcohol and drug treatment. They offer a whole lot of training programs for job finding and helping to get your ID book and so on. So they are actually really wonderful facilities, and we've built a lot of them the last 2 years precisely with this in mind.
There are people who oppose you in this, and there's been a long legal battle. NGOs, a couple of them did say that these people should be allowed to remain there, and I think their argument is that this is a public space and so people can live there. Why do you disagree with that so strongly?
Yes, I disagree with that very strongly, and I think the vast majority of reasonable people do disagree with that. Public spaces are for the public at large. They must be safe. They must be reasonably clean. They must be open for the public to use, and these spaces are not. They have become essentially reserved for the exclusive use of those people living in the tents. Members of the public do not want to go near them because unfortunately they are very associated with lots of petty crime like cell phone snatching and so on. And there's lots of drug use, some often open drug use that happens there. That is not an appropriate place for people to live. There are no services there. There are no toilets. There's nowhere to wash. So these are just not places that people should be living. It is not dignified. It's not clean. It's not healthy for them, and it's not healthy for the city and the CBD. So we have to act to get those people into an alternative and get them the help that they need.
That is Jordan Hill-Lewis, the Mayor of the City of Cape Town. You with SAFM, 21 minutes now to 9, continuing a mediated conversation around dealing with people who are homeless in this area. Ndodana Hadebe is the chair of the Homeless Action Coalition. Ndodana, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thanks for having me this morning.
As I understand it, you disagree with the city in trying to move these people. Why do you believe that the city's wrong?
Look, we don't disagree about moving the people. We disagree about moving the people to safe spaces which they are lying about. You see, because you don't go to media and tell everyone that you have a safe space and people are going to have 2 meals, people are going to have the public needs space to walk on. I don't think the mayor has gone down to see and be there like us on the ground to be with those people, to see where they are living. Actually, some of them live even better. I don't think even he has a time to go interview maybe one of them, to hear. Yes, we don't disagree with him when he says there's sometimes crime, because somebody is looking for a fix, he needs drugs, and he's got no money. Surely somebody will do crime. We don't condone that. But the main thing is he must not come to the public and tell us that he is going to do better. People want this, and he doesn't want people to be in the street, and the public don't know. Because the same people he's talking about are public. All of us, we are in the one city. You know why people move to the CBD, to be honest with you? People move to the CBD because it's safe. That's one of the safe places. I've lived in Cape Town since 1995. There's never been a gunshot. You know, a gunshot sound in Cape Town. There's never been a robbery in the stores. Look at the statistics. Because the city is guarded. You see, you cannot be robbed. The cell phone he talks about. Maybe one incident there. Because every single corner of CBD has a security.
Okay.
There is something called CCDIC, which surrounds the whole city. So city is safe. That's why people feel they can be safer there.
Okay. So what kind of facilities? I mean, let's go back a little bit. The facilities that the city is providing, you say they're not perfect, sure. Are they not better than living in the sort of tent city where people were living? And I mean, I've driven past them once or twice. I don't live in Cape Town. They don't look, they look like pretty horrible places to live in. Isn't where the city's moved them to, I haven't been to those places, but isn't where the city's moved them to better than that sort of tent city that was there?
The funny part is those people come from the safe spaces. If you go and interview them, they've been to safe spaces with the city, and some of them have lived there for 3 months. And the conditions were not conducive for them. They were given time frames when they're supposed to come. During the day, they were not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be in the street until 5 p.m. Let me give you an example. Cape Town is one of the best cities with safe spaces. No one can doubt that. Because we have safe spaces. We belong to the national network of homeless around cities, Durban, Johannesburg. we were recently gathered in Egukuleni city. Everywhere, if I go there and show you what Cape Town is actually more safe spaces than anybody else. But the problem is the city is focused on removing people from the CBD. They are not actually about, they want to satisfy the ratepayers and the people who are complaining about these people, the tourism and all of that. And because the people he's talking about, it's only 100 people he's evicting. He's not evicting 14,000 people. There is 14,000 people in the street of Cape Town. They managed to evict some in Sipon area, which is also another guarded area of Cape Town. So for us as Homeless Action Coalition, we don't condone to say people must live in the street. We actually must be clear. We want people to come off the street, but in a dignified manner, given all what he's saying, all the jobs. I give you an example of one place in Ekuleni called Manger Care Center. When you take someone to a safe space, automatically those people live inside there. There's a gentleman, I think it's Zane, one a good friend of mine. He came in Cape Town, he was appalled what they always tell him about the city. He has a shelter where when they bring you into the shelter, you already have rules. Number one, you don't do substance. Two, you are given a job immediately. Three, you have a meal ready, what like the mayor is saying. It's automatic. But with the safe spaces here, you go in, it's another company, it's not the city doing the safe space. That company then takes you in, then deals with you, maybe sometimes abuse you. And then you decide to be funny enough, there is no safe spaces for families. Actually, the court order has been changed now if you look at it in the last couple of days. There is no safe spaces. City, what he said, the alternative, it was a lie. So the court has changed that. We're looking at some reports coming out to us with the SERI, the lawyers who are representing. We are not representing the people. We are not in court with the city. SERI, the lawyers which are from Johannesburg, are the ones with the city. So they keep on blaming that us as Action Coalition, because some of our organizations work very well with the city. But city must give those organizations a chance instead of them coming on public and say, this is what's wrong, this is right, just to satisfy the ratepayers. No, we disagree with that.
Okay, so I mean, I understand that, and as a position, there's no argument against it. But I do need to put this to you in Dodana, which is that it seems to me that every city in the country will have people who are living homeless. And I don't think any city would be able to give every single homeless person accommodation. And isn't that really, and certainly not the kind of accommodation you would like to have, or anyone would really like to have. But isn't that the problem? That's why the city of Cape Town has done the kind of system that it has. You know, it's not a great system, but they've done it. So isn't that really the issue? The point of the fact is that councils cannot provide accommodation for every single person who needs it.
Look, there's a solution. The solution is us. We are here. I've gone on media many times and I told the city that they must come engage with us. But then they were about to engage with us, obviously for political reasons. Maybe they decided to disband. Even our movement now, the Homeless Action Coalition, is about to disband because it was made up of some of the organization working in the city very well and some of the homeless people from the street. And I happened to be the chair, and I was now caught between because I was the independent person out of the whole process. So what happened is then now we have developed a new one, which is we are connected to Los Angeles now in America, which they had the same problem with the Reverend Kevin Souls. We together, we've come up with a solution to say, let's get all stakeholders together. Let's get the ratepayers. Let's get the military. Let's get the police. Let's get the households. Let's get the NGOs. Let's get anyone interested in homeless people come together and have solutions. I can tell you now, if you go to the street and speak to those people, some people are willing to go home. Some people miss actually their houses. It's just because of the circumstance. They can't go back home because of a certain reason. Some people came to town because, like I told you, this is a safe city. You can never have a gunshot in the city of Cape Town. Look at the statistics. You'll see yourself for yourself. That's the most protected. I feel safe to be in the street than in Menenberg or in Delft, where there's a shooting every single corner. Kokulot is even worse. I don't even want to talk about Khayelitsha. So why would I be there where I am robbed every single second? Let me rather go to the city, make a safe space. I've been to those shelters projects inside. There are actually people living very well, and a lot of NGOs are doing very well. I've seen the Universal Church, some there in the CBD feeding the people next to the one which the mayor don't want. You know, the one of the castle, the store of the castle, where he claimed that he was there evicting the people. The castle hasn't started doing anything like that because the castle people has lived there for years. So now, before you do that, you go approach the people, talk to them, let social workers, like he's saying. You know how he got the names of the people? He went there with a private company and took the names of people. What's your name? We want to help you. We're going to give you some food. People were giving their names thinking that they are actually giving for something else. Then the mayor took whoever was doing that, compiling that report, and they only got 100 names because some people don't give their correct names. And then that's when they took to court. But the court order is being changed now as we speak to you. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Ndodana Hadebe, Chair of the Homeless Action Coalition Network. You're with SFM, 12 minutes now to 9. Continue a mediated conversation around helping people who are homeless. The Reverend Delaharp Leroux runs the Homeless Network and is the founder of Towers of Hope Church in Mangaung. Father Leroux, good morning to you and thank you for your time. When someone's been living homeless for a long time, what is the best way to help them?
Yeah, there's no easy answer to that. And I think you have to go back to the reason why do people end up on the street. And it will differ also from the different metros and the smaller cities. Like Bloemfontein, Mangaung is a very smaller secondary city. In our city, people come to the street, the majority of them looking for jobs. I heard what my colleague said about, people coming to Cape Town for safety, and that makes sense. Yeah, it's about trying to survive. And so we find here in our city that many people are not permanently on the city. They come and they look for jobs, and when they don't find jobs, when it's at the end of the month with SASSA payments, they go back to the township, and a week later they're back on the streets, just trying to survive, just trying to better their situation. So how do we help those people? Well, that's the million-dollar question. What I do agree, and I commend everyone in a sense involved with homeless people, trying to adhere to their dignity, not to make decisions for them, not to criminalize them, not to think that people end up on the streets because they like to be on the street. That's not true, because especially in our city, it's very, very cold in winter time on the street. So yeah, it's a thing, it's an issue we're all trying to engage and trying to listen. Why are you here? What is the issues? How can we assist you? Not decide for you, but assist you to better your situation.
It's been suggested that many people who are homeless may have an underlying trauma or perhaps an addiction, and that causes them to make the decisions they have made. Is that true?
Again, it would differ. So again, in our city, like I said, many people come looking for jobs, but there are people ending up on the streets right across our country, and I would even say the world, that cannot survive in terms of paying for accommodation. And to get out of that stress, they come to the city. They try to think that this is a safe solution just to get back on their feet again. And the longer they stay on the street, the more they get sucked into stuff that they do not want to do. So again, not everybody living on the street are involved with drugs or substance abuse. Definitely not. But what happens, the longer you stay there, the more you get sucked into that. Not everybody are criminals, but the longer you stay there just to survive, the more you are sucked into that. So I think that part of the solution would be economic. Getting the economic situation in our country at a better place so that people will not fall through the cracks from wherever, so that they either being evicted, either looking for jobs, that they will not choose the alternative to come to the city and trying to survive on the street.
Are there better policies cities can use to help people living like this? I mean, a safe space is a good idea.
So let me say, and I say it with a big heart, like our city of Mangaung has got about nothing, nada. It's the context, and I can tell you many things about our city. We don't have that. So I think Cape Town is trying, and I heard my colleague, giving credit where credit is due to the government in Cape Town. I know Durban has some good initiatives at times, and I know in terms of policy, there's my colleagues in Gauteng, in Pretoria, and Johannesburg. They are working closely with government. So, and I think it's a slow, laborious process. And there has been some movement forward that the government to listen to NGOs like us, listening to people coming out of homelessness, to understand how do you really help them. But in Bloemfontein, there's nothing. The Free State, there's nothing. In the heartland of South Africa, it's a different zone.
Reverend Delaharp Leroux, thank you, part of the Homeless Network. In a moment, we'll hear from someone who herself has lived as a homeless person, Alicia Ricks, in a moment. It's 8 minutes now to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you're on the run between Pretoria and Joburg this morning, the N1 staying slow. It probably will surprise a lot of motorists just how much traffic there is out there between the old Joburg Road and the new road exit. Just a lot of pressure building up through there. Earlier crash on the Mike 1 going into Greyston Drive from the Houghton and Melrose side. Driving north seems to be easing. That traffic is slow but moving. And the Mike 1 coming up through Crown, busy but easing after an earlier crash there from earlier this morning. A lot of pressure around Galuli's interchange. Crash on the N3 North, blocking 2 lanes at Linksfield Road. So N3 coming up through the interchange is heavy. Behind that, the N12 and R24, it's quite badly backed up, approaching the links to the N3 North to turn into that traffic at Galuli's interchange as well. Durban still worth avoiding the M4, probably will be for sometime. This is the Southern Freeway inbound. A fatal collision at Congella. Traffic delayed all the way back through to Clarewood. That's very heavy. You might want to go N2, N3 as the alternative. It's not looking too bad. The queues on the N2 are really sort of north of Spaghetti Junction into the roadworks and a breakdown now before Mgeni Road. But if you sort of do that N2 and then off ramp at the N3 inbound, you'll avoid that N2 North queue, and you'll also importantly avoid the big backlog on the M4. Cape Town crash right in the heart of Goodwood. Jakes Curville Drive and 4 Trekker Road, so delays all over that one. And the N2 in the Cape Town very heavy this morning. A collision scene before the Jakes Curville Drive exit. Traffic parking back heavily beyond the airport exit, back towards the airport runway territory. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
7 minutes to 9, the time. Continue your mediated conversation here on SAFM around homelessness and people who've now been forced to leave those 10 cities in the city of Cape Town. Someone who lived on the streets for a time during their life is Alicia Ricks. Alicia, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning.
You yourself were living like this at one point. What had happened that you had ended up in this situation? It must have been incredibly difficult to live like that.
Yes, it was difficult to have found myself on the street. It was not a choice I made. Circumstances in my household changed, and that ended with me having to leave my space and end up on the street.
And when you were living there, I mean, what did you do? Where were you sleeping? What did you do during the day?
Well, I was literally on the street with my daughter, and we were sleeping under stairs, any space that we could find that I would think was safe enough to hold us throughout the night. I actually didn't really sleep. During the day, I would take my daughter to school and then go walk around to soup kitchens just to accumulate food for the time when I had to go collect her at school again so that she could eat. Sure. And then that is how we would live.
So she was going to school and then sleeping with you under stairs at night?
Yes.
Sure. And did you speak to other people who are homeless? Did you spend time with people who are homeless as well? Or did you really just try and keep to yourself, just you and your daughter, just looking after her?
Well, I did interact with other homeless people as we moved from soup kitchen to soup kitchen. But most of the time I just kept to myself just to safeguard myself and my daughter.
Mm. And when you spoke to people, did they tell you what had happened to them? I mean, could you see how they had ended up? I mean, had some of them maybe have the same problem you had had at home?
Yes, there are a lot of similarities. Some were just thrown out because they voiced an opinion. Others were abused and ran away from home. There were people whose places burned down and they were not able to rebuild again.
And I mean, were you able to get enough food at a soup kitchen? I mean, there must have been days maybe where you couldn't get much food at a soup kitchen.
No, weekends was the hardest. as there's not many soup kitchens open over a weekend, and because we obviously wouldn't have a fridge or somewhere we can store food, so that was also difficult, to hold on to food for a day or two.
Were you forced to beg, to ask people for food, to ask people in the streets or in cars for food?
Definitely, even scratching burns for food.
Sure. And did people give you food, or did they give you money? I mean, asking them for food or for money must be very difficult.
It was extremely difficult. Some would give money, others would give food. Some would just want to give advice, which I appreciated at the time, even though it was what I was looking for.
Sure. And I mean, how did you have a school uniform for your daughter, for example? I mean, how did you manage that? To be there and back, you'd have to walk everywhere, of course?
Yes. Yes, so she did have a school uniform, which I had to wash in a river so it can be clean. Other than that, I would walk everywhere I needed to be.
And what happened after that, Alicia? Were you able to move to a better place? Were you able to find somewhere to live? Did people help you maybe?
So yes, while at the kitchens, I met a stranger that showed me to a place called Gauteng Homeless Ministries. And once I started going there, it was also like to me, it just looked like another soup kitchen. But once entering there, they kind of gave me hope for a different future. I then moved in with that very stranger I met. And from there on, I just started changing my life.
Are you able to work now? I mean, if you're able to work, it just means so many other parts of your life come together.
Yes, I am employed permanently at the very place that helped me. So I'm now an administrator at the therapeutic team for Gauteng Homeless Ministries. I'm living on my own with my daughter. I have yet another child. So I'm doing good.
And your daughter's still at school?
Yes. She is on high school now.
Sure. It must have been quite a journey, Alicia. I mean, you must see people on a daily basis who have been forced to live like you were once forced to live, and I presume you try and help them as much as you can.
Yeah, I definitely do try my best. Firstly, I need to understand the situation before I can even offer help. And I appreciate the position that I am in now, to engage with the people that are still battling on the streets.
Alicia, thank you for sharing your story. I know it's not easy, and I know you've had a very hard time of it. So thank you for giving everyone else strength, and good luck to you, to your daughter, and to your other child. We'll be thinking of you.
Thank you so much.
Alicia Ricks, prepared to tell her story to you this morning. Someone who was formerly homeless. Well, also earlier, of course, you heard from the Reverend Delaharp Leroux from the Homeless Network, and Dodana Hadebe, the chair of the Homeless Action Coalition, and before that, the mayor of the city of Cape Town, Jordan Hill-Lewis. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Kathy is next from Mdu, Stanza, Melissa Zim, and myself. Look after yourself. You're with SFM leading the conversation. It's 9 o'clock.
Top stories for this hour. DA accused of trying to create a parallel cabinet in the GNU. And Brazil reports the highest number of forest fires. Good morning, I'm Eva Chiba. Former ANC MP Annelies van Wyk has accused the DA of attempting to establish a parallel cabinet within the Government of National Unity. This comes as 10 political parties that constitute the GNU are engaged in negotiations to form a cabinet. The DA on Sunday submitted a new list of demands, which includes the appointment of its members to key positions such as deputy presidents and heads of strategic ministries. Former ANC chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Annelies van Wyk says the DA is acting in its own interest.